Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Goddard with Cryptid Paranormal. This is the first podcast of Cryptid Paranormal, so thank you for everyone for watching. Tonight, our first guest is Richard Farabee of Sasquatch Unredacted Podcast and the Bigfoot Florida Guy. Let's welcome him to the stage now. Good evening, Richard. How you doing?
Hey man, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see you again.
You too, my friend. We are live and ready to go.
I am definitely stoked that you chose me to be your very first podcast. I feel that was an awesome thing. I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. I did not know that until you told me, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. It was definitely wanted to have someone I know, get familiar with it. It's just an easy time. We've always enjoyed talking, and we can go on for hours. So it seemed like the perfect choice.
Well, we do have great conversation because I think we're like minded. You know what I mean? And we see things in a forensic, logical way. Let's just use the word logical. We see things logically and open minded, but we see things logically, and I think that's that. And the great thing is we can agree or we can disagree, and we're still friends. That's how the world should work, right?
That's right. So tell me, or tell everyone, I should say, what got you into Sasquatch? What attracted you to cryptids?
I really, to be honest with you, it was never even on my radar ever. Um, I was, at best, I tell people I was agnostic. I wasn't a believer and I wasn't a disbeliever. I really didn't care either way. If it was ever brought up to me, and as a deer hunter, I was an avid deer hunter, and the guys I would hunt with and stuff, it would come up in conversation, Bigfoot, and I was always like, well, if it exists, wouldn't surprise me. I think the possibility is probably there. Do I think it's out there? Probably not. But so I was agnostic. It could go either way, and it stayed that way for years. And until it's one of those things you don't believe or you don't know until it happens, and then it changes everything. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happened to me. I was out, doing some scouting and deer hunting and had an encounter, and it all of a sudden I was down that rabbit hole.
So tell us about your encounter. What happened? What do you remember? How long ago was it? Was it day,
Oh yeah,
night?
oh yeah. It was a daylight. It was in 2005. I don't remember the exact month because we're talking 20 years ago, and but I know the location. I know, which is funny, and we'll get to that later in conversation how that plays a role. But what happened was I had after I had gotten out of the military in 1992 and had lost contact with some of my buddies and stuff that I was close shipmates with when I was in the Navy, and I had reconnected earlier that year. Um, maybe 6 to 8 months prior to this happening, to one of my buddies, and he was living in West Palm Beach. I was like, "Holy crap, that's not far! I can be there in less than 2 hours," type thing. And so reconnecting and talking, we got into deer hunting, and he was an avid deer hunter, and I was like, "Wow, we got to get together," and blah blah blah. So that's what led up to this encounter because um, he had a location that he's deer hunted his whole life, and he said, come, and visit, and we'll go out there and scout for this upcoming hunting season, and we'll hunt together. So I was like, yeah, right on. You know what I mean? So I drive, I get to his house, and something happened. Even to this day, it was one of two things. I don't remember. It was either his wife um, had something for him to do and he couldn't leave, or it was work. It was something happened that he said, hey, when I got there, because this is back when we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have GPS, we didn't have anything. Everything was maps, and so there on the way there, there's no way he could call me and say, hey, I can't make it. Turn around and go back. So I drove the entire way to get there, but I wasn't upset because it was a great meeting to see him and shake hands and give a hug and talk about old times. Um, but he said he couldn't go, and but he's like, look, the area that we're going to scout, you pass it on the way in, which he was right. I remember this forest, this long, huge forested area when I was entering that county. And he said, yeah, he goes, so we pulled out a map because that's what we had was maps. And he kind of guided me on the entrance, where to go in at this place. So I said, yeah, I said, I'm going to head back, but if I have time, I'll swing in there and check it out and stuff like that. So I start heading home. I'm driving down that road, and it's a long highway, just straight long highway. And I see that forest on the left, and it was beckoning. I was like, yeah, I got to get out there. I got to get in the woods, So I found the entrance he was talking about, and it's a long um, white shell rock road. Okay. Um, Narrow, where two vehicles can pass each other, but it's narrow. It's a close pass. You know what I mean? You might want to pull over a little, let another vehicle go around you or pass by you. Um, and so I was going down that road and just scouting the area, looking around, and then I went down it quite a ways. I to this day I don't know how long that road really is. On a map, it looks very long. I've looked it up in the past. But I had found what looked like a fire break or some large trailhead that was heading into the woods. So I decided to pull over and walk that fire break. And nice, wide open, big enough that a truck could drive down it, but I wouldn't. Not two vehicles side by side, just the width. It was a nice trail, but it was wide open enough to walk easily. So I started walking down that trail, and remember that I'm just out there scouting. So I do not have a gun. I did not have water because I didn't expect to be out there very long. Really had nothing other than the shirt, pants, boots, the things I was wearing at that time. Of course, no cell phone because I didn't have one back then. And if I did, I can't remember, but if I did at that time, it wasn't a good one in 2005. It's not a smartphone. It was probably an analog flip phone. So, and back then we had shady service. So if I did have one, I know I didn't have it on me. So if I did have one, it was probably left in a truck because it was probably worthless out there. But anyways, so I start walking down this trailhead, and I walked down maybe a half a mile, let's say. It's been 20 years, but it was a good walk down this trail, and I was enjoying the day. It was a beautiful day. Temperatures are great, and surrounded by pine forest on both sides. And as I got down the trail, it got narrower and narrower. So now it was a very thin trail, easy to walk, but a very thin trail where you couldn't drive any further if you did take a vehicle. So I started going down that portion of the trail, and I came to the only way I can describe it is like a berm. Like four-wheelers do in the woods, and they keep doing the same trail. It makes that berm where they spin off the berm. That's what it reminded me of, but it could have been an old tree fall or something like that. But it was this big mound, and not very big, but I would say 4 feet tall. And but in Florida, everything's flat, so if you can get up 4 feet, you're doing good. So I decided to climb to the top of it, look around, and see what I can see. And I did have binoculars. I did have binoculars. So I'm scanning and looking around, and while I'm up there, I look down on the opposite side of the berm, and there was this fantastic deer trail. I was like, oh man, I'm going to take that trail and follow it for a little while and see what's up, because this is easy access from the road, and this might be a good hunting area. So I started walking the deer trail or game trail. And it was really good trail, solid. I mean, like it was heavy traffic. So I was following it through the pine forest, and then it opened up to a palmetto field. Okay. And now at the time, I don't know where they are now, but at the time, the palmettos were about waist high, some a little taller, but on average, probably waist high. And so at that point, I'm zigzagging through the palmettos. You know what I mean? It's an open field. There's sporadic pine trees, but it's really wide open. And the pine forest started again. It's like a big circle, and I'm cutting through the palmetto field to get to the other side. So as I'm walking through this palmetto field, I'm constantly looking down because I'm looking for tracks. I'm looking for anything that gives me a good sign of deer and stuff like that. So as I'm walking, and at this point, I'm probably a total of a mile in total, and I'm about halfway across this palmetto field, which is only probably 100 yards wide. So I'm halfway through it, and I'm looking down, and then all of a sudden, I get the loudest yell, and it was fast. It was like a just like a whip of sound. You know what I mean? It was loud. It reverberated through my body. It shook me. It was so loud. Um, it was like it was like right there in front of my face. Um, and it was loud. And like, if I was the best way I can describe it, if I was in a movie theater and they had the surround sound in the theater cranked all the way up, and you have, you know, I don't know, King Kong or Godzilla on the screen, and they do that yell. It wasn't as long. It was very fast, but it was that loud. It was very loud. And so at that moment, as I'm looking down and this loud sound hits me, in an instant, my head raises, but I turn around immediately. I'm heading out. It scared me so bad that I just turned and started heading out. I needed to get out of there. That's all I kept telling myself. I need to get out of here. I don't know what that was. It just scared the living crap out of me. Um, I mean, adrenaline's pumping. I'm scared. And I'm honest about my feelings. And I tell people I was afraid. And so I turn immediately and I start walking out. And I'm telling myself, don't run, don't run. Just keep walking. Don't turn around. Just keep walking. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking if it's a predator, or a bear, or something like that, if you run, you become prey. See what I'm saying? So as a hunter, just stay focused, keep walking. And so as I'm walking back towards the pine forest behind me, I'm no longer zigzagging to get through I'm walking over stuff. I'm trying to make a straight line right back to that tree line that I just came out of. So as I'm walking, I hear this noise to my 7 o'clock and to my 5 o'clock behind me. So diagonally, it sounded like it was on this side and this side, but I kept hearing these thuds. Like, the best I describe it is like dropping sandbags on the ground, just this heavy, boom, boom, and just very heavy. And I can hear it, and I'm walking. I'm like, don't turn around, don't turn around, don't turn around, and I'm just trying to calm myself down. That's all I want to do is calm myself down. I knew I didn't have a firearm. I knew I had no way of protecting myself. At best, I had a pocket knife on me because I always carry a pocket knife. But that's not going to, whatever this was, I don't think that was going to help me much. And so I just started walking. And once I got to that tree line, as far as I can remember, I never heard the thuds again. And I just kept walking. I didn't take the deer trail back. I just walked like continued a straight path right back toward, because I knew the road was in that direction. And it was a long walk. I mean, I'm a mile in, and somewhere around a mile. And I just started walking, and the whole time I'm scared. I mean, the whole walk I am just terrified of what just happened. And I finally get to the road, and I look left and right, and I see my truck to my right, and it's only a couple hundred yards up. That's when I pick up pace. Still didn't run, but I definitely picked up my pace to get to my truck and get out of there. I got in my truck, I turned it around, and like I said, this was a shell rock road. I'm doing 45, 50 now on a shell rock road, and if you don't think that's fast, try it, because it's gravel, and you're a little bit of fishtailing, not a whole lot, but you're moving a lot. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to get out of Dodge. That's all I could think of, as I got to get out of here. So I get back to the main highway, and I head all the way home. I did not stop at a store. I didn't stop anywhere. I drove all the way home, and never brought it up to my buddy. I literally ended that friendship. I literally, because I didn't want to feel made fun of. I didn't want to say this is what I ran into it out there, and then because I wasn't going to hunt. I can tell you that right now. I was not going to hunt out there, and I didn't know how to tell him that. Look, I'm not going to hunt with you and stuff like that. I just never spoke to him again, and so and I regret that today. Now I look back on it. That was the wrong thing to do because he was a buddy, and so after that, it haunted me. I mean, like all the time every time I laid my head down to go to sleep, that just replayed in my head all the time. I mean, for years, it was like my nighttime routine of going to sleep and revisiting that whole ordeal. And so that really started it, where I started to try to do as much research as I can. The internet wasn't as big as it was now, so finding stuff online was a lot difficult. There was some stuff, but it was very difficult, and a lot of it was stuff from the 1950s, 70s, and 80s, and stuff like that. Um, Not a lot of new stuff like you see today. There was no such thing as AI. There was no such thing as all this other stuff. There was no blob squatch. There was none of that stuff. It was mostly reading material. You know what I mean, with some photos and stuff like that. So I started researching. Then I went to my local library and would look up books and stuff like that. And on the rare occasion, if I was around family or friends, I would bring up the subject of, hey, have you ever thought about Bigfoot? And if their immediate was laughing or joking, oh yeah, I don't believe in that, I would end it there. I would not discuss it. See what I'm saying? So I never really discussed my encounter with anybody. You know what I mean? I just kind of left it alone. My family's a lot of alpha because we're all prior military. My family's big on going into the military. So it's one of those things, and especially my uncles and cousins, I respect them so much. A lot of them being in the Marine Corps, the Army. We're all the branches were represented in my family. And so I always wanted to be as alpha as they were. So when I saw that it was going to be something that I was going to be made fun of, I just left it alone. See what I'm saying? Um, that continued for a long time. Then I started to do my own research, and this is like I said, I don't know. I didn't even join YouTube until 2012. So from 2005 to 2012, and I didn't even join Facebook until 2009. So I was out in the woods, I was looking, I was paying attention to things, but I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't know about we tree breaks and arches, and I'm looking for a creature. I probably missed a lot of evidence back then because I didn't know what I was looking for. I just wanted to look for this creature. That was my goal. I did purchase a camera that I still have today, in case I saw it. I was going to take a photo or whatever, and so I just started researching and listening and stuff like that. I didn't have equipment like digital recorders and night vision and thermals like I do now, and so it was mostly me hiking a lot, and stuff like that. Now I was still scared. I'm not going to lie. I was still had this level of fear, a lot of anxiety every time I went into the woods. So camping was out of the question back then. I wasn't going to spend the weekend out in the woods and stuff like that. So that started my research. I did that for a long time, a very long time, and then things started to progress. Things started getting better on the internet. So I was able to research more on the internet and read people's encounters. The BFRO was created, so I was able to go on their site and read, and stuff like that. So it really, I started delving into that rabbit hole very heavy. Um, then I met, and you can bring this picture up when we talk because I want to do a shout out. But the Kerry Arnold was doing this thing called the 168, and he was one of the shows I was watching. And this was back in, I don't remember if it was pre-COVID or right when COVID started. I took that picture of Kerry Arnold, and we will get into that discussion on why that picture is so significant. There was a group of us out there, but we'll get to that picture in itself and why that picture is so significant. But anyhow, um, I was paying attention to him and what he was doing and stuff like that. So um, he was on a show one night, and I was one of the guys always in the chat and asking questions and stuff like that. And then one he was talking about the 168, and the 168 was he was going to record. He was going to get a group of teams of researchers in the woods for 7 days straight, recording, researching 24 hours a day for 7 days a week, running audio, video, everything. They were running drones. Everything was going to happen for 24 hours straight, 7 days. That's where the number 168 comes in. So um, he had announced on a show one time that if anybody was interested to, um, give him a shout out. So I emailed him and said, because he said they were doing it in Florida. They were going to do the 168 in Florida. So I sent him an email and I said, um, hey, look, I don't know where you're going in Florida, because they were keeping it a secret because they didn't want hoaxers and people just showing up. It was invited people only. And I said, but if I were you, this is where I would go. And I told him where it was, and and why I thought that these creatures are there. He emailed me back like immediately, within 5 minutes of me sending that email. He emailed me back, and his response was, "What is your phone number, and what is your phone number?" So I emailed him back and said, "This is my number." Literally, as soon as I sent it and he got it, he called me, and which was exciting for me because, wow, Gary Arnold, you know what I mean? At the time, he was the biggest name in Bigfoot podcasting. So the first words out of his mouth when he got on the phone, other than "Hey, I'm Gary Arnold" and blah blah blah, he was, "How do you know about that place?" That was his first words. "How do you know about that place?" So I went into my encounter and told him what had happened to me. He says, "Well, that's where we're doing the 168." At that,
Wow.
and that's where everything kind of played in together. So we got to talking, and we quickly became friends over the phone and stuff. At the time, I was working nights on patrol, so we would, I had a lot of downtime, so we'd call each other at night and talk for 2-3 hours on the phone. And he would send me stuff and say, "Hey, check this picture out," or "Check this audio out." He was sharing stuff with me, which I still have to this day. And so at one point, it was really funny. He did this thing. So, anyways, long story short, he invited me to go on the 168. But at that point, it was very short notice. And I was like, "Look, I would love to, but it's such short notice. I can't get the time off from work. I wouldn't be able to find the coverage to need to cover my shift and blah, blah, blah." I said, "But I don't live far." And at this point, I had moved to Fort Lauderdale when we were talking. And I said, "But if you need anything, let me know. And I will, the first available time I got, I'll load up my vehicle with whatever you need, water, gas, whatever, and I'll bring it." You know what I mean? And he liked that. He's like, "Wow, that's cool. You're not coming, but you're willing to help out," and that spoke volumes with him. So I didn't do the 168. He did go out there. That project didn't work out the way he wanted. He only put one episode out, and it was supposed to be multiple episodes because it was multiple days out there. Um, because it just didn't turn out the way he wanted. He had a lot of complaints with how the research was going and how the documentation of the SD cards and audio, all this stuff was happening. It was really hard for him to go through all this information because it wasn't labeled properly or labeled in a manner that he could find it quickly and stuff. So he was really unhappy with the whole thing. But we continued to be friends and talk and stuff like that. And then one day we were talking, and I had made a comment. I had made a list of researchers in the field at that time that I wanted to meet and stuff like that. And so we were talking about that and everything. And of course, he was one of those people on the list. I would love to have met him at that time. And he goes, "Hey, there's a guy that was at the 168 that I don't believe lives far from you, named Jimmy Barr." and he has a little research group, and I'll introduce you. So, long story short, me and Jimmy Barr connected, and we spoke on the phone, and Jimmy invited me to go out with his group, a small group. I mean, total, all of us together was 4 guys. Um, and we stayed small enough that we never went out. I don't think we ever went out with 4 guys. It was always 3 of us. Always one couldn't make it. Um, so I hooked up with Jimmy and we started going out. We went out to the 168 area. We went to a lot of different places. When time restraints would allow. Now I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I have a lot of free time. So I can go out every single weekend, which I was still doing. I was still going out every single weekend. But now I was recording. Now I was documenting everything through film and stuff like that. So I started accumulating all this information on all these devices, and I needed a place to put it. So I thought I'll start a YouTube channel. That's free storage, as far as I'm concerned. See what I'm saying? I wasn't thinking people watching it. I just thought it was a place to dump these files. You know what I mean? So if you go back and look at my channel, Bigfoot Florida Guy, or you could just type in BFFG and scroll till you see it. It should pop up pretty quick. If you go all the way to the back, there's roughly 500 videos now. But if you go to the beginning, very very poor quality, no editing. It was just dump it. You know what I mean? And because I got with the guys and said, hey, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to create a YouTube channel. We're just going to dump this stuff on there. And so I was doing that. And Kerry Arnold ended up meeting up with us. And he would drive to Florida. He would call us and say, hey, I'm going to be in Florida. He had a friend of his that was a researcher they were always hooked up with down here. So he said, I'm going out there anyway, so if you guys want to join me, this is where I'll be. So we started going out there with Kerry Arnold. So I finally got to meet Kerry, which was amazing, which I don't know if I put that picture up there or not. I didn't. But I have a group photo of us all together and a lot of pictures of Kerry in the woods. So we would go out quite a bit. I think we went out, I don't know, roughly a half a dozen times with Kerry out in the field. Kerry's an amazing guy. He is who he is live as he is on that podcast. Hulk of a man. The man is a huge figure, a very big man. And you can see him in the picture. He's very, very tall, and he's just a large man. Works in the oil fields, very strong as an ox, and stuff like that. So fast forward to this photograph. This is an area called Hungry Lands in West Palm Beach. Great area, and we'll get to some of the pictures of what we found in Hungry Lands. That picture is very significant because Kerry had bought that camera. He's known for one photo, which I should have put on here, called the Banner Bigfoot, because the picture looks just like the Hulk. Just like the Hulk. When you look at the picture, and I'll share that with you later. I could probably pull it up now if we have time, but it looks just like the Hulk. So they named it the Banner, David Banner. That was that day. The day that picture, when I took a picture of Kerry with that camera, that photograph was taken that day. So when people talk about that photo, I say, well, I don't believe that photo. It can't be what he's saying it is. I was there. Okay. I was there, when that photo was taken. Now, Kerry didn't know he had taken that photo when he was taking the photos. He was just taking pictures of the woods. Okay. And this thing was between a couple of trees. And it does have green skin, but what the theory is on that is it's really the sun shining through the green canopy, and and due to what they call achromatic hair and stuff like that, and the skin's very oily. It was probably reflecting that green glare from the canopy. That's the best we can assume. It wasn't until after this trip, when he started going through his stuff, he got all excited and called us and said, I got a picture, you got to check this out. And then he went live on one of his shows and presented the Banner photo. So that's why that photo right there is significant. Also, what makes this photo significant, that was Kerry Arnold's last birthday. we were there researching in the woods on his birthday. And he did a live show. If anybody wants to go to his YouTube channel, Bigfoot Odyssey, you can see that live show where we're all sitting there in those chairs that are behind him, with a fire. I think we had a fire going. I can't remember, but we're all sitting around there talking and stuff like that. That was his birthday, because we were really busting his balls on, look, dude, why are you here on your birthday when you should be with your family? You know what I mean? And but that's where we were, and so that's what makes that picture very special to me, very significant and stuff like that. So, but we had been out in the woods a few times with him, and this picture is used on the Bigfoot Odyssey Facebook page. His co-host Daniela did reach out to me and ask me, since she knew we were in the field with him, did I have any pictures I wanted to share? So I did share them all. If you go to the Bigfoot Odyssey, this picture's in black and white. I'm a very big black and white photo guy, so I had done one in black and white, and I had sent her that one. And so there was some controversy about the picture, because she was like, "Oh, you stole that picture." They were, and I made it very clear, no, Daniela did ask permission, and I gave it to her. So squash that now. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful I
Yeah,
did, because now it's his legacy. It's a famous photo of Carrie in the field with that camera. So, but
excellent.
yep. And just so the audience knows, this weekend, today is September 11th. I believe it's the 13th, is the anniversary of Carrie's passing. So I'm kind of thankful that you called me and want to do this show, because it gives me an opportunity to remember him. You know what I mean? And I don't ever want to forget Carrie Arnold. So, um, so moving on, I was working with the team and stuff like that, and but I was doing a lot on my own, because we live far from each other. I live in South Central Florida. One guy lives on the West Coast, another guy lives on the East Coast. So it was really difficult for us to always get together. I was the most active. I was in the woods all the time, because, like I said, I didn't have the obligations that they had, so I was capable of getting out more. Now I'm really motivated, because I'm a part of a team. I have equipment, I have things, so I'm getting in the woods a lot more. And then I started doing camping. So I started doing 3 4 day campouts by myself in the woods. You know what I mean? Still scared, still nervous, still feeling anxiety, but I just I drew a lot of energy from Carrie and from the team that I can do this. I can do this. And that's when two other encounters happened. And if you want, I can get into those encounters.
Absolutely. Let's hear it all.
So the first one, again, like I said, I don't have the obligations that most people have. I would choose holidays to go camping, because there's nobody out there. You know what I mean? Not that I go where I go is crowded anyways, but I wanted to minimize any contact with people.
Good idea.
So it was Christmas weekend, so I knew everybody was with grandma, grandpa, all this. Everybody's doing the family thing, so I decided to go camping, and so I went camping. I was out there, I think, a Thursday through Sunday, Friday through Sunday type deal. So I get out there, I get set up, I do my thing, and I decided to go for a hike. And so everything's, and I got pictures of this. I'm in my, it's cold in Florida. It does get cold in Florida, and I'll get into that too. But I was wearing a vest, long sleeve shirt, pants, stuff like that, hat. Always wear this hat, my favorite hat. And so I started going for this hike, and I was in it for, I was walking, I don't know distance wise, but I was walking for at least half hour, 45 minutes. And I got to this area where you had this path, and on both sides of the path was these circular water, these big puddles, for example. They weren't ponds, they were very small, maybe 10 foot across, but perfect circles. I think they were put out there by FWC as runoff so the trail didn't flood. And it was all rocks. The trail was grass and dirt, but these areas were rock, and they were full of water. So I was sitting there, and I was like, and I don't usually do this, and it's very rare that I do. I don't knock on trees, and I don't do calls. And the reason why is I want the creature to instigate that. I want him to initiate any kind of vocal or anything like that. I don't want to force it, and I don't want to. We don't know when we hit trees or make calls what we're actually saying or representing. So the last thing, because I still remember my first encounter, I don't want to revisit that encounter. So I don't want something angry and upset. So I I did some calls. I did these grunts, these real loud, hoofs, and so I sat there for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes just seeing if I got a response. No response. So I'm just kind of walking around those little water areas, seeing if there's any prints, anything came to get a drink while I'm waiting to see if I got a response. Nothing. So I continued on my hike. So I walked for, I don't know, a long time. I walked for a while, got tired, got hungry because I started the hike at like 6 a.m. So, man, I got to get back to camp. I got to eat breakfast, which consisted of hot dogs. That's my breakfast, lunch, and dinner when I'm camping is always hot dogs. And easy to pack, easy to cook, easy meal. I don't need any fancy anything while I'm in the woods. So I started heading back. Well, I get back to that location where the two water things, because it's very easy. You can't miss them when you walk by them. And in the middle of that trail was a palmetto frond that was ripped out of the ground and was laying in the middle of the trail. And I don't know if anybody watching this or yourself, if you've ever tried to pull a palmetto prawn, you can't do it. You're a big man. You know what I mean? You would not be able to pull this off the plant. It takes a truck just to pull a branch off. They're very, very strong plants. See what I'm saying? But this was ripped, like where it was broken, it looked like it exploded. It was just boom, like just ripped. And it was laying in the middle of the trail. I'm like, holy crap, that was not there when I came by half hour, 45 minutes, hour ago, whatever length of time it was. I was like, holy crap. So I started documenting, and I started getting that anxiety. I started getting that nervousness. And so I started taking photographs and stuff like that. And I believe I even did a video of me talking and explaining what had just happened and stuff like that. So I waited there for a few minutes. I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. So I headed back to camp. Got to camp, ate my hot dogs and stuff like that. And the rest of the time was uneventful for the rest of the day. The following, now that Friday night, I believe it was on that because it happened either on that trip or the following trip that I did very soon after that. I was laying in bed and I heard this scream, and it was really weird. I've never heard anything like it before, and it's just a very odd scream. It might have happened on the second. Yeah, I can't remember if it was the first trip or the second trip, but the same camp spot. But anyhow, I went to bed. It was the second night, and the temperatures dropped to 29 degrees. Okay, remember it very distinctly. I knew a cold front was coming in. I was prepared, and so I went to bed that night. It was an uneventful day. I went to bed that night, and I was laying in bed. Now my tent is screened all the way around, so I can look 360 degrees. It's not a window over here type tent. It's all screened except for the floor up to about 18 inches. That's solid around the base of the tent, but everything else above that is all screened. That's why I bought the tent, so I can view things from the tent. But it was so cold, I had to put the fly on, which is the cover for the windows, that screening area. But I needed to keep the cold air out as much as I could. So I put the fly on. So I went to bed and went to sleep. And I don't know what time it was. It felt like it was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I heard this noise, and it woke me up. I'm a very light sleeper. And I'm laying there, and then I hear it again, and then I recognize this sound. And I'm looking up at the ceiling. Something is walking from the foot of my tent to the head of my tent, rubbing the roof of my tent. And it was that very distinct hand on that vinyl of a tent or whatever you want to call it. It's that very distinct sound when you rub a tent, and it was rubbing the fly of my tent from one end to the other. So now I got that anxiety again. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. So I start to uncover out of my sleeping bag, and now I'm only in my skivvies because in cold weather you don't want to wear clothes in your sleeping bag. You know, you want to break down as much as you can. So I'm only in my skivvies, which was long underwear. So I wasn't completely. It was long underwear for wintertime. So I edge out of the bed and I grab my phone and I grab a flashlight and I got my hand on the zipper of the door and I'm sitting there listening. Okay. And I've got a smartphone where it's one button and it goes straight to either film or camera, whichever one I got it set on. And I don't remember which one I had it set on, but I had it set. All I had to do was click one button. And even if the screen is shut off, it goes directly to that setting right off the bat. So I was ready. I was prepared. Then I realized I heard this noise, and it basically, whatever it was, had picked up my cooler and was walking away with it. And the cooler was literally right outside the door of the tent. And that way, in the middle of the night, if I got thirsty or something, I just had to unzip, reach out, open the cooler, grab me a water or whatever, and get something to drink. So it was that close. When I heard whatever it was had picked up the cooler, and I could hear the contents of the cooler sliding back and forth, like, you know, when you're walking and you're swinging, you know, I could hear everything moving, and I freaked out because that's all I had to survive. That was it. Everything in that cooler, my trip was over if I didn't have food and water. So I quickly as I could, I hid the flashlight, I unzipped the tent as quickly as I could. There's a lot of fumbling, but I get out and start shining with the flashlight, and there's nothing there. And I can see the cooler is about 20 feet away from the tent, laying there. And now I have to use, you know, my own logic on what picked that up, because I don't think a bear is going to pick it up. Usually a bear will open it up, you know, rip it open.
Yeah,
He wants to get
they'll
to
tear into it, but they're not going to carry it.
right. And so I was like, I don't think it was a bear. With the weight of the cooler, it wasn't a huge cooler, but it had a 10-pound bag of ice. It had packages of hot dogs, buns, condiments, water. So I want to say the cooler probably weighed 20 pounds, let's say. Well, a raccoon can't lift 20 pounds. You know what I mean? I don't know any other animal that would have picked this thing up or be tall enough to rub my tent. So I get out, I got the flashlight, and I'm shining it all through the woods. I'm walking around the tent, you know, checking things out. I got brave enough that I walked a little bit into the tree line around my camp area. Nothing. Can't find anything. I don't see anything with a flashlight as far as prints go, but it was very hard substrate with a lot of leaves anyways. So then fear hits me that what if this thing went up? So now I'm scanning the trees. You know what I mean? Because that's the last thing I want to do is be in a horror flick where I look up and this thing is coming down out of the tree at me. That's where my mind went. And so I'm looking in the trees, nothing there. So whatever it was fast, and I don't know how long it took me really to open up that tent and because like I said, I had a lot of adrenaline pumping. You know what I mean? But it was able to get into the tree line before I could catch it. So the next morning I get up, I do another clean sweep, see if I missed anything. Still didn't find anything. And as a FYI, that night before I went back to bed, I did put the cooler in my truck. I was going to leave it out again, so I did put it in the truck. But I was scanning around during the day. I didn't find anything or stuff like that. I was there for another day, I believe, and it was uneventful, but I was very alert at all times, very alert, especially at nightfall. I was very alert. Hardly slept the next night. It was just very, very difficult. So that was that. And then I decided, that was in December on Christmas. February, temperatures were better. Everything was better. So I was going to go back and camp in the exact same spot. Okay. So I set up everything the same way, everything. So it looked the same. Vehicle parked in the same spot, tent set up the same way. Everything was the same way, except the cooler was in the truck this time. So pretty uneventful. That might have been the night that I heard that weird scream, that weird noise, because when I heard it, the next morning I went for a hike and I did run into an older couple they weren't camping, they just went out there to go for a walk. And um so I was talking to them and we were talking about the scream and stuff like that, and they had never heard anything like that and stuff, so I just didn't go into much detail. Um but I get back to the camp. I do my regular thing, and I decide to, it was getting late, so I went back to bed. And on this trip, I brought my dog with me, and I have a cur. It's a hunting dog, and a wonderful, lovely dog. Never has been an issue in her entire life ever. Her name was Bailey, and as long as I own that dog, she never barked once. Never barked. It's a very silent hunter, very silent dog. Wonderful with children, wonderful with people, wonderful with other animals. Just an all around perfect dog. So, and I wanted to try her on a camp out. And she was doing wonderful, doing great. And so we went to bed that night, and I had put her bed down at my feet, and she was sleeping, and I was sleeping. And this time I did not have the fly on because it was better temperature. So now I have a beautiful view of everything around me at nighttime. So I'm laying there and I'm asleep, and I hear my dog growling. Again, like I said, it woke me up because I'm a light sleeper, but I'm looking at her like she's never growled before, ever. You know what I mean? So I look down at the foot of my bed because she's only from, I'm 5'10", so she's only down by my feet, and she's staring at the screened area to my left, okay, which is about arm's length away from me. And she's sitting there staring at it, growling this low, very low growl. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, there's something there. She's telling me there's something there. So I slowly sit up. So now I'm sitting on the ground. So I'm above that 18 inches. And I think about it. I take a deep breath, and I slowly turn my head to look out that window. And on the other side of that screen, something was there, squatted down. It looked to me, when I described it, I used to describe it as like a gargoyle. Remember the old time gargoyles on buildings, how they squat? But somebody gave me a
Yeah.
better analogy, which is a catcher on a baseball field. You know what I mean? A baseball
Okay.
catcher. And that's what it looked like. Was something was squatted down outside that window. Okay, and I'm staring at it, but it's dark enough that I can't make out any features. I could just make out an outline. I can see an outline of whatever's there, and I see a head. I see what to me is shoulders, and then halfway down, I don't see the whole thing because to me it's squatted down. And so I'm sitting there staring at it, and anxiety hits me again, really heavy. And so I reach down. I always keep things really close to me. So I got my phone again. I got my flashlight again. And I'm like, I'm getting this sucker this time. So this is where I made my mistake. So I got ready, and I was going to blast this thing through the screen in the face with my flashlight and see what it is. That's where I made a mistake. I thought without the fly on, I would be able to see outside the screen. It doesn't work. As soon as I hit that flashlight, that light just blares back at you off the screen. So I didn't see anything. But as soon as I hit that light, whatever it was shoved the tent. I saw the whole side of the tent get pushed in, the whole side of it. And my dog jumps up, runs behind me. I'm thinking the dog's supposed to protect me, but here I am between it and whatever. And so the dog's freaking out. And so I grab everything, I unzip the tent, and again, I go out. This took me a minute because I had to deal with the dog. It scared me. The tent pushed in. So it was not quickly getting out of the tent. Okay. But when I got out again, whatever it was took off. It wasn't there. Again, I do a patrol. I walk around. I check things out. Nothing. Next day, do the same thing. Nothing. Again, the rest of the weekend, uneventful. Those were my closest by myself in the woods encounters. Um, the next one was down the road. This is when I had met Johnny Two Bears, who is also the host of Sasquatch Unredacted. A lot of people know who Johnny Two Bears is. He has a fantastic channel called Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Um, but so me and him, I found a lot of respect in him because integrity is a very big thing in my book, very big, right up there with loyalty. And so he had what made me really like Johnny. It was his integrity, his honesty with himself and with his viewers. And one day he had posted something because I was following his channel, and one day he had posted something, some evidence or whatever, and he was discussing it and stuff like that. And then it was a short time later, a week later, 2 weeks later, he does another show and a live show, and he says, "Look, I need to apologize. I went back and reviewed all my evidence, and I don't think it was what I thought it was. This is what I think it is after further review." And that took a lot. You don't see that in the Bigfoot community where somebody will own their mistake and say, "Hey, I was mistaken." See what I'm saying? A lot of researchers will, even though they're wrong and they're proven wrong, will double down on their evidence, and it just makes them look even worse. See what I'm saying? And he didn't do
Yeah,
that. He
I
took
agree.
ownership. He took ownership of it, and that meant a lot to me. So I said, I got to meet this guy. I got to get to know this guy. So I don't know how back then we reached out. We talked on the phone and stuff like that. He's very reserved, very cautious with researchers and stuff like that. So it took a while for me and him to really hit it off and get. It was our relationship was growing, but it wasn't immediate. And so one time, I invited him to come to Florida and do research at the 168 location. So him and one of his guys was coming, and then I had me and two guys off of the research team that we were on, and we went out there. We were camping out there. I think it was 4 days. I'm not sure, 3 days, 4 days, and really uneventful every day until the last night. I mean, we were researching, we were going out, we were looking, but we really weren't finding anything. But that last night, we went to this one area, and we found possible prints. So we were documenting those, looking at those and stuff. But it was getting late, and we knew everybody was leaving the next day, so we wanted to get a good night's sleep. So we headed back to the camping area, which is pretty far away. This campsite is 7 miles into the woods, so we're not near anything. We're 7 miles out there. So we get back to camp, and the other two guys that I was with went to their tents and went to sleep. And it was my opportunity to hang out with Johnny and his guy before they left. So I went over to where they were camped out and sat and was sitting talking to them when they were loading up gear and stuff like that and drinking coffee. And as we were sitting there, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get these growls, big time growls. It was so shocking and so loud. It made us all three stand up, and we're looking at each other like, "What the crap?" And then it just kept going. It was like whatever was growling wasn't breathing. It was growling on the inhale and the exhale. It was just nonstop, this deep guttural growl. So I grabbed the phone. I start videoing. I got my headlamp on. I turn my headlamp, and this is all on video on my channel. Um, so we start going into the woods on the tree line because it's in the woods, and we're in a grassy area, and we're shining. I think I'm the only one that actually had a light, which is my headlamp, which is a good headlamp, but the light only goes so far. This was the first time we actually pulled guns. We actually pulled out our weapons because we did not know what this was. So as we're listening to it, all of a sudden another one comes up. Let's say, for example, this was at 10 o'clock. All of a sudden, another one starts growling at 12 o'clock. Then all of a sudden, another one at 2 o'clock. So we have three of these entities making these deep growls, and we can hear them moving through the forest. We can hear branches break, we can hear twigs break. We hear all this where something is moving through the forest. At that time, I'm like, oh, got to get the other two guys because there's five of us and there's only three of us experiencing this. So, but one of the guys is 150 yards away in his tent. And I didn't want to yell because I didn't want to scare off what was checking us out. The other guy was 50 yards behind us, so we were like, Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. No response. Okay. So we start investigating. We start looking in and all that. Nothing. We couldn't see anything, but none of us was brave enough to go in the woods and confront whatever this was. But we could still hear it. The three of them were moving slowly to our right, clockwise. So we listened to this for at least an hour. Okay. And we ended up going to bed. And as I was in my tent sleeping, I could still hear them out there. Okay. Now they're where my tent is, where it's 50 yards away, but they were further in the woods, but you can still hear them. So the next morning we get up, we're all talking about it, and come to find out, while we were dealing, me and two other guys was dealing with these three entities, the other guy that was 50 yards behind us had one on his side at the same time. That's why he didn't respond to us. And the other guy that was 150 yards away was having one at his location, and he recorded it. So there's five of us, and there's five of these that we know of. Where there was three of us, there were three of those. Where there was one guy over here, there was one. It was like it was strategic. You know what I mean? Hey, there's three humans over here, so three of us are going to go here. You go to that one, you go to that one type thing. So whatever was there evidently was watching us the whole time when we came back out of the woods that night. And then decided to growl or do whatever. Maybe out of curiosity. Maybe they wanted to make noise so we would pay attention to them. I don't know. But I did get it recorded. It is on a video on my channel. If anybody wants to hear it, I recommend putting on headphones or earbuds. But I believe the video is called We Were Surrounded. And it's only a 10-minute video. It's not very long. But that was a very... I wasn't scared that night because I was with men. I was with other guys. So I wasn't scared. Now, I was alert enough to draw my firearm, and so was Johnny. I don't remember if the third guy that was with us pulled his out or not. I'm not sure. But I know me and Johnny did. Because in the video, I don't know if I caught in the video or not, but it probably is in there. He said, hey, you watch my left and I'll watch the right. So if anything comes, you take care of it on that angle. It was a military. We were thinking military because we're both military on how we were going to move. But even though we're moving, I'm focused on this location. He's focused on this location. So that was that encounter. To this day, we don't know what it was. We didn't see it. So I go ahead and post the video and stuff like that. Well, one of the guys watches the video, and he's really good at breaking it down and slowing it down, looking at it and zooming in. And sure enough, where the three of us were at, he caught eye shine. Very good eye shine in the video. So that was impressive. Very excited. We went back, a short time later. Of course, without Johnny and them because they were back in Georgia, to reenact it during the daytime, to investigate what we had encountered. And it was really easy because we had all these landmarks in the nighttime video. So we paused it, and then so I knew exactly where I was standing because now we're looking at daytime and I'm looking at the photo. Everything was perfect. Even the moss in the trees were still there. So everything fit perfect. So I knew this is where I was standing. That's the direction I was looking at with the eye shine. So I walk out there looking around, and then we swapped. And then Jimmy went there, and I said, Jimmy, take your walking stick and hold it up, and I'm going to tell you when to stop where I see where the eye shine is in this video. He holds it up. The eye shine was at 8 feet. That's how high the eye shine was. And there was No obstacles between me and Jimmy other than a tree to his right, my left, with some at a higher level, some branches coming out. That was it. Okay, we probably didn't see it because, like I said, my headlamp doesn't reach that far because he was probably a good 40 feet into the woods, and so I don't think my headlamp would have reached that far. So we reenacted that. Now in that video, as I'm walking back to Jimmy, you hear two solid, probably one of the best wood knocks we ever caught. As I'm walking to him, and I go, "Did you hear that?" He goes, "Yeah, I heard a wood knock." I said, "No, it was two." And sure enough, when you go into video, it's two wood knocks. See what I'm saying? So that was an interesting day. So we went back there further back, and I found a 15-inch print. And as I'm looking at this print, and I go to call Jimmy, Jimmy says, "Hey, come look at this." So I go over to him. He has an exact same footprint, 15 inches. We measured everything, exact same measurements. I said, "Well, come look at this." Exact same footprints, exact same ones. So whatever it was, made happened to make a print over here, and then happened to make a print over here, probably about 20 feet from each other. But exact same footprints.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was.
So I'm curious on something from all three experiences. Did you smell anything while any of this was going on?
I didn't smell anything on those encounters at all. Nothing at all. I have a theory behind that, why some people smell and some people don't. You know what I mean? Um, if this thing does have um, a primate side to it, primates, gorillas, they have scent glands, and they give off a smell. It's mostly during mating, and or it could, like with Sasquatch, it's either when you smell it, maybe it's they're looking for a mate, or like a skunk, it's a warning you're getting a little too close. See what I'm saying? But if it does have primate, then what's the chances it also has some kind of scent gland because smell travels, and if you're looking for a mate, you know what I mean? That might be the way to do it. Oh, el natural,
Sure.
flying through going through the the air. So, but I didn't smell anything on those. Now I have smelt stuff in the woods, huh?
Very possible with the attracting a mate. That's an interesting hypothesis. It certainly makes sense.
Yeah, because you have a lot of accounts, and like I said, I've read a lot of accounts. I've spoken to people. Of course, on a podcast, we talk to people, and when you put it all together, and you're looking at all these different attributes and stuff, why do some people experience this but some people don't experience it? And the smell thing was like, what if it's they're doing it on purpose? See what I'm saying? And those are the only options. So I started, one of the things I did was I researched gorillas a lot for behavior and stuff like that. And a lot of and these are just my theories, there are no experts in this field at all, period. I'm not an expert, I don't know an expert. But you have to come up with logical theories that make sense. See what I'm saying? I am not a paranormal guy. I am not a metaphysical guy. I am a forensic guy. I need to see the evidence, touch the evidence, measure the evidence. I need to record. I need to video. I need stuff that I can look at and look at logically. You know, so I started researching gorillas to get a better idea if this thing is a primate, because at this time I don't know what this is. I've drawn a conclusion now of what I think it is, but it's just my opinion. But as far as at the time, a lot of people think this thing is a primate. So one of the things a gorilla does is the odor thing through sense glands. Another thing is wood knocks. I truly don't believe that Bigfoot is walking around with a stick in his hand hitting trees. It's just not.
I don't think so either.
Huh?
I don't think so either.
I
I'm
think it's
not
a
saying they
vocal.
don't do it, but it's Yeah, I would imagine the vocals are more accurate than wood knocks, but
Yes. And when I was researching gorillas, and when they do that chest beat, a lot of times their mouth is open. A lot of times they do that. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I think because they have a hollow chest cavity, they're hitting that, creating that noise. Because if you've ever heard one do it, go to a zoo or go to YouTube and listen
yeah,
to those.
that goes. Yeah,
It's very loud. It's not quiet, and I think using the mouth as a amplifier to, you know what I mean, to project it. Now, if you're looking at something that's 7, possible 8 feet tall, with a larger mouth, a larger chest cavity, larger hands, who's to say how loud that is and the distance that you can hear it from? See what I'm saying? So it's more logical to me that it's some sort of vocal. It could be done with a hand or it could be done with the tongue. I don't know. I'm just speculating that it might be a chest hit or something like that, because when you read, and you've probably seen a lot of reports or read a lot of reports or heard a lot of reports, never has Bigfoot been walking around with a stick in his hand. See what I'm saying? And when you're in the
no,
woods, what's that?
yeah, no, yeah. I was gonna say, typically when people see him, there's nothing in his hands. He's not carrying anything. He's not moving trees around. He's not smacking trees.
Right.
And more often than not, they're not making that much noise either when they see him, which is always
Right.
interesting because, like as you had said, you guys heard something walking around, but then when most encounters happen, people generally don't hear much of anything, which I always find interesting because are they consciously being quiet to avoid you, or in your case, were they consciously not trying to avoid you and trying to alert you of your presence? And if that's the case, that speaks to a certain level of intelligence behind them too.
Oh, absolutely. I That's why, if there was a primate side of it, it's a more intelligent primate side. It's very intelligent. I think it's self-aware. I've had things thrown at me, but and it's always when my back is turned, and I think that's because they want me to look in their direction. I think they're interested in the person. And I think that night when they were making vocals or whatever, or they came into my camp, I think it was more curiosity, because there's no doubt in my mind, even my first encounter when it scared me out of the woods, at any time this thing could have harmed me and did not. See what I'm saying? So that tells me there's a level of intelligence. It made a conscious decision that it was not going to harm me. That's why I'm very big on these things are passive. I don't think they really want to harm humans. Not saying that they don't. Okay, there's always an exception to every rule. A lot of times when you come across a bear, it will run from you. But there have been people attacked by bears, so they do
Oh,
attack.
for sure.
But I think it's circumstance. I think you got too close to cubs, or something out of the ordinary. Maybe he had a food there and you were getting too close to where its food was. Who knows? So if anybody's been attacked or killed by a Sasquatch, it was probably because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe a hunter shot at one and then that hunter paid the price. See what I'm saying? So, but I think in general, when you look, if you right now randomly pull 100 um, people's accounts of what they saw, it's always passive. It's always passive. It's a hiker walking down a trail and this thing walked out in front of them, and they looked at each other. And he went his direction, and that person went his direction. It's a fisherman fishing, and this thing walked out interested in what he was doing, or it was on the other side of the pond, lake, river, whatever, and didn't realize he was there. See what I'm saying? And they look at each other, and it always goes off into the woods. See what I'm saying? So I think, or driving down the road and it walks in front of your car. It's all passive and happenstance. You were at the right place at the right time. See what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
so I think
So
for the most part they're passive.
so with the ones that were surrounding your camp that night, do you think they were trying to warn you off of something you guys were near? Where do you think they maybe you guys were approaching where they sleep, or where they happen to be staying, for lack of a better term, at that time, or they have
No,
young in the area?
when you look at things in retrospect, when you finally get to calm down, anxiety's not there, you're reviewing the information, and you can take a clearer look at it. I think they were there the entire time we were there, all the days that we're there. This is a location that's had other Class A sightings. So we camped there because we knew people had sightings in that camping area. And this is a primitive camping area. There's no electric, no water, no nothing. Um, I think that they were curious, and I think they were bored or something like that. I think they wanted us. I think they started seeing us going to bed because two guys did go to bed, and I think they were just curious. I think they were just, um, just maybe harassing us a little bit, but I don't think they were threatening. See what I'm saying? So same with the tent and stuff like that. I think they were more curious than anything else. You know,
So you had mentioned that you guys pulled guns out. Was there any change in the howling or any noise or any kind of reaction whatsoever
nothing.
with the appearance of a gun on the scene?
No. Now, of course, they never ever came close enough for us to see them, whatever they were. But I did notice that as we did step a little bit into the woods, they would move back, and if we walked out of the woods, it seemed like they would come forward again. See what I'm saying? But again, they were walking around the camping area, um, which is very dense forest. It's very dense. So, seeing too far in isn't easy, anyways. Um, but I just, like I said, the area where the eye shine was, it was moving from a thick area, and then there was a break, and then it moved into another thick area. And we were lucky enough that I happened to be facing that direction, because a lot of times when I'm filming, I'm not actually looking at the camera. I'm looking around while I'm filming, and I happened to look in that direction with the headlamp, with the camera, and I caught an eye shine. See what I'm saying? Because when we watch the video, I'm just glancing by. See what I'm saying? It took, like I said, it took the other guy to slow each frame down, zoom it in, and that's when he found the eye shine. So I didn't see it with the naked eye. Nobody else saw it while we were live in that spot. So, but
That's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people who, and you and I agree that more physical, biologically oriented in our
yeah,
theories. But some people think that they can sense your intent and they can sense weapons and things like that. And I'm not saying they can or can't, but I was just curious with the introduction of a weapon, if there was any change in their behavior. Some people
no,
have said that has happened to them, and when they were do you think there was any kind of pattern in how they were moving around? Because you said they were moving clockwise,
yeah,
but
it
were
wasn't like
they?
yeah, it wasn't like one was catching up to number two and number two was catching up to number one. See what I'm saying? They stayed equal distance and just kept moving around. See what I'm saying? Um, but as far as them, as far as taking out a firearm, I think with any creature, and this is any creature, it could be your dog or anything. I think they understand intent. See what I'm saying? Our intent was not to shoot one. Um, like I said, we had anxiety as far as, okay, something's going on here, but I don't think we were presenting any aggressive behavior, at all. The gun was just there in case. That's it. I think maybe they recognized that and said, okay, they're not a threat, and they're not blindly shooting into the woods or anything like that. You know what I mean? Um, but I didn't see a difference. And even to this day, when I go out, I always carry a firearm. Now, it's not necessarily for a Sasquatch. I'm not going to shoot a Sasquatch. I take it out there because there's so many other things in the woods that want to do me harm. Florida is not very hospitable to being in the woods. So I take it for other reasons. See what I'm saying? Um, but my intent all the time when I go in the woods, my mindset is always peaceful. Okay. I do this little brain activity and when I go in and I just relax because I do always still have anxiety because I'm by myself, because I'm back to by myself. I'm not with that group anymore. For quite some time now, I've been by myself again. The group thing didn't work out. It's hard when you're the only active person doing everything. So I just do my own thing again. I'm back to being by myself. So my camp outs and my walks are always by myself again. So a firearm is important to me. You know what I mean? Um, you know, but we continue the research. We can go through some of the pictures I gave you, and I can describe
Yeah,
some.
absolutely.
Now, this ain't my best evidence. It's good evidence, but it's not my best evidence. I'm not going to share that with the public. These are things. So this first one is a tree break. This is at that area that we were camped out. I have some zoomed in pictures, but to describe this tree, this is a native Florida orange tree. This is not the orange trees that you see on the roadsides that are full oranges that we eat and drink and stuff like this. This is the native orange trees that are wild. The fruit is not edible. Okay. Um, Back when they were first planted, they probably were. Um, they were a different type of orange tree that we currently have today, due to science making them bigger and better. But that tree branch, I should have put one in here that was zoomed in. It is snapped. Now you have to understand an orange tree. It's extremely flexible. Okay, I can take that tree, and at the time back then I was about 220 pounds. I can bend that tree, but I can't break it. It's extremely flexible. It has a lot of elasticity, so it's a very, very whatever broke it snapped it quickly. See what I'm saying? Kind of like a pencil. You can flex a pencil without breaking it, but if you do it fast, it snaps. That's what broke that tree. Something snapped that very, very, very quickly. See what I'm saying? And it's hard to tell in the picture, but that's probably a 15-foot or so tree. Not very big, but yeah, as you can see in the background, there's other trees too that are not broken. This is in a swamp, so these trees are not the healthiest as far as large bases and stuff like that. But it was
How
definitely
big would you
broken.
say that tree trunk is?
I would say across probably around 5 inches, maybe 4 to 5 inches
So it's fairly thick.
at the base. And then as it gets taller, it gets narrower. Um, but it was snapped and close to the base with the thickest part of it. See what I'm saying? So that really caught our eye. That was very impressive. Um, if you go to the stick in the hole, the that particular picture, I found this twice. We'll show the second picture in a moment, but the whole scenario, this was like an igloo. It was these vines that created like an igloo with an entrance. I crawled inside of it on my hands and knees to look inside, and it was huge inside. And that was what I found in there, as if something was in there picking in the ground looking for something, grubs, beetles, I don't know, but it was picking. See what I'm saying? So I'm
So let's
looking at
back
it.
up a second. When you say you crawled inside, describe that structure or what they
I have
what
pictures of it. I can if you give me a moment, I can pull it up if you want to look at it. But it's like, just picture a round ball of vines with an entrance. Okay, the vines just intertwined into this hollow ball with an
so
entrance.
so was it like a basket almost?
Yeah, like a basket upside down with an entrance. You know what I mean? With an entrance. The entrance went from the ground to maybe, I don't know, 3 feet up. And so I got down on my hands
Okay,
and knees and crawled in. But once I was inside, I could stand up if I wanted to. See what I'm saying? It was all
okay.
hollow out on the inside. And when I went in there, I saw this stick, and it was in this hole, like something was picking at it. And my first thought was, you have to have a thumb. See what I'm saying? If you're going to pick something up, and what animals use a tool, especially in the state of Florida, what animal can we think of that uses a tool to find insects, grubs, and stuff like that? That is hominid behavior or primate behavior. See what I'm saying? But either one, they have a thumb. See what I'm saying? If you go to the next picture, we were
I was
walking
going to
this.
say too, larger primates have been known to make nests. That's one of the things that they tend to do.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Now I found nests. I have pictures of nests that look like giant bird nests, where like everything was brought in pulled in a big nest, and it looked like something had laid down in the middle. And I have pictures of that stuff too. Um, but here's a different location, a few miles away, and I find it again, a hole in the ground with this stick in it. Now I have further pictures. I gave you because StreamYard will only let me download 10 pictures, so I had to be very selective. But I have pictures of taking this stick out of the ground, and from the tip to about 3 inches is dirty, muddy, dirty. Not that one. That's a different one. But it was muddy, dirty. See what I'm saying? Where it was used to dig in the dirt. So we found this in two different locations. I have shared those pictures with other researchers because they said they had found the same thing. Soon as I sent them the pictures, they got in contact with me and said, "Dude, that is exactly what we're finding." See what I'm saying? They think their theory is it's a juvenile and it's just entertaining itself like playing. My theory is it's something looking for something to eat. Maybe a grub, it smelled something, is trying to dig for it or something. Either one can be true. Both
Yeah,
can be true. So I don't
absolutely.
know. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting that you're describing a nest because if you're familiar with the Olympic project in Washington, they found several nests up there of an unidentified species.
Right.
And it appears to be primate in nature, but the DNA evidence till date has been inconclusive.
Right.
But it's interesting in two states on opposite ends of the country that we're seeing the same kind of design, the
Correct.
same random thing in the middle of nowhere in the woods. In Washington, it's much further out from civilization. I think it's roughly 12 hours to get there. But
Right. And
it's
and we're
interesting that
and we're finding the same thing here. Same type of nests, maybe different material, but when you put them side by side, they look the same. You know what I mean? The structure of them looks the same. And I have pictures of those. And one day, me and you'll sit down and share. Yeah, I'll show you those pictures. Now, this one right here, this is about a 3 foot long stick, about the diameter of a broomstick or a mop. We have found this in this particular area numerous times. Now, if you look at the ground, you can see the leaf clutter. Impossible to get a print there. That leaf cutter is about 3 inches thick. It's spongy when you walk. Okay, but we find these sticks that are about 3 to 4 feet long, shoved through the leaf litter and into the ground. So
how
it's
high is the water table there?
there. This is a dry area right here.
Okay.
This is a dry area. This area right here never sees flooding or anything like that at all. This where this picture is, never. I've gone to this spot 100 times, always dry. And you can see that's why I put my thumb there. From the thumb to the end, it's dirty. I pulled it out of the ground. I have other pictures where I show the hole. I show it before I pull it out. I show the hole after I pull it out, so you can see the depth and the leaf litter. Again, back then I was 220 pounds. I took my entire weight and tried to push it, and I could not get past the leaf litter. Every time I let go of it, no matter how hard and how long I pushed, let go, the stick would fall down. So it's impossible for it to fall off of a tree and stab through all that. See what I'm saying?
So
So,
does when it rains there, does that ground get soft or mushy at all?
well, I'm sure it's soggy, like anything, like even your front yard, because it's rain. We get a lot of rain here in Florida. It's soggy, but this area, and I've been out there, when it's raining. It's never flooded, but when it's raining, it gets wet, but it's not. The leaf litter really keeps a lot of water off of the ground because, like I said, it's 3 inches down. The ground below it is pretty solid, and it's dark earth. It's not sand, or because we have a lot of sand even inland. It's dark earth, because I'm pretty sure throughout the last 50, 100 years, a lot of decomposition from the matter that lays there, and that's what creates the soil. So it's very, very compact, very, very solid, dark soil. But we found this numbers of times. We have found it where we were there one weekend. I'd go back the following weekend, and there'd be two sticks side by side each other, right beside each other. Now, what are the chances of one doing that and then another one doing the exact same thing 12 inches away from it? See what I'm saying?
So if they're doing that, what significance do you think that is? Are they marking just as their
You're,
own, kind of like
it's
if you were to tag a tree just as a map?
I to be honest with you and to be a legitimate researcher, I'm going to give you a legitimate answer as a researcher. I don't know. I don't know. I we Anybody can make speculation on what these things that they're doing. We don't know. I use X's as an example, and I've got some photos of X's. I don't lend a lot of credibility to X's or glyphs. Okay, if you take any two sticks and toss them on the ground, they're going to connect either as a T, an X, or an L every single time. And we see those in the woods all the time. So just because I see an X does not mean that Bigfoot did it. Things happen. Mother Nature does crazy things. Now, if you're in a hardwood, like see right there, that's a hardwood in the background. That's a hardwood area. Now, if I found two pine trees in that hardwood forest making an X, now that would now make me take a closer look, because if the nearest pine forest is 200 yards away, how did these two trees end up in the hardwood forest and forming an X? So you have to look at the structures and break them down. See what I'm saying? It has to be significant. There has to be something illogical happening here that I have to now, as a researcher, try to explain, because you have to. As a researcher, you have to explain it. See what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that researchers make is they never say I don't know. See what I'm saying? They always have an answer, and a lot of times there is no answer. That's why we're out there to try to find answers. But not all the time are you going to get the answer. And I can't explain to you why two pine trees ended up in a hardwood forest. See what I'm saying? All I can say is this is very weird. This is not normal. See what I'm saying? Did I see
Yeah.
Bigfoot do it? No. So I can't make a claim of Bigfoot. And if anybody watches any of my videos, I never claim Bigfoot on anything. I let the viewer look at the evidence and make up their own mind. See what I'm saying? Um, so, like I said, I showed that. I have better pictures of those sticks. Like I said, I'm sad that StreamYard won't let me put a lot of stuff on here. Now, if you'll go to the arch, that was a significant arch. Now, this is in that same area that we find the sticks in the ground. Again, you can see the matter of fact, if you see the two trees in the middle, the left tree, if you continued walking towards that tree, through that tree, and kept walking, that's where I found that stick. See what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Um, so this is all the same area. This was an amazing arch because that guy in the picture is around 5'8". Okay, not a super tall guy, but he's 5'8". So you could take his body and determine how tall that tree is, and it's a hardwood. Okay, probably flexible, but it's a hardwood. The end of that tree where he is standing is shoved into the ground. That's what's holding that tree in place in that position. It's shoved into the ground.
So is that an area where you get high winds or anything like that that
Well, we're
would
Florida. I
explain
mean, we
that?
have hurricane seasons and stuff like that. Um, but if you look at all the trees around it, none of them bent, none of them broke, none of them. See what I'm saying? That tree being as thin as it, and it's a larger tree. That's probably at the base eight, somewhere between 8 to 10 inches, or maybe 8 inches wide at the base, and it's
Oh,
probably close to 25, 30 feet. It's a very tall tree, because you could take his body and kind of domino him around it and get an idea. Like I said, he's 5'8". Um,
so it would take quite a force to not only bend that, but to jam it into the ground.
correct. Um, Me and him found a similar tree, same diameter, pretty much the same height, and together we could not bend that tree over. We just couldn't. The only way I could probably get it to bend is if I at 57 years old or 56, I was probably 55 at the time, 54, probably 54 or 55 at the time of this picture. I would have to climb that tree and use my body weight to try to lean the tree over. But standing on the ground, we couldn't budge it. We couldn't move it. We didn't move that tree a half an inch. See what I'm saying? And for it, some had to be taller to be able to reach up higher and pull it down at a thinner level. See what I'm saying? And then walk it down to the end and then shove it into the ground. That's our only explanation. See what I'm saying? Just walk it down and shove it into the ground. Um, it's sad that arch is gone. It's not there anymore. So
based on the picture, though, it doesn't look like there's a lot of other damage that would be signs of a storm going through there either.
correct.
And I see some stuff on the ground, but for the most part, everything is kind of what you'd expect walking through a dry, calm day.
Yeah, most of the stuff on the ground are leaves because it's a hardwood area. So even though Florida, we're considered a warm tropical state, we do get cold weather, and we do the hardwoods do drop their leaves. That's what's accumulated in that area is all the down leaves. There are some branches. Branches do fall off trees. They do naturally fall off trees, people, and that's what's on the ground. You'll find branches and stuff like that. So those are all natural. But again, like I said, I would revisit. I visited this spot every weekend for months, months. You know what I mean? And I can't remember how long it was, but it was only a couple months into it, and that arch was gone. The whole tree was gone. It just didn't exist anymore. So,
Like, what was it? Did someone cut it down, or was it like was there still a stub?
no, there was no existence of it whatsoever. None. It's just not there.
Like, was there a hole where the tree would have been?
Not by the time I went over there to look at it. You know what I mean? That's the hard part too. Is if I with that stick I pulled out of the ground, once I pull it out, it's almost impossible to put it back. See what I'm saying? But when I walked over there and looked at it, and I was like, oh wow, because I wanted to look at the arch. I was like, it's not there anymore. So I looked around for the tree or anything like that. It was gone. It wasn't like it even fell and was just rotting on the ground. It was gone. It was not there. That's not the first time I've ran into that. I recently, if you go back in my videos, I do a comparison video of an arch where the whole area is different. It's just different. The arch is gone. The tree that was beside it on the ground is gone. The palmetto bush at the base of the arch, gone. It looks like a totally different area, and the ground's not disturbed. There's probably about from ankle high to knee high vines that you have to wear gaiters to walk in that area because the vines will rip your legs apart. So I have to wear gaiters. They're not disturbed. All the vines are still there. But that arch and the tree that was holding the arch down, which is at an angle that there's no way the tree fell and got it. They were 10 feet away from each other and at totally different angles. The tree fell this way, but the arch was at a completely different angle. So if that other tree was standing here and this tree fell this way, how did it grab hold of this pine tree? Pine trees are very tall, very narrow. See what I'm saying? But yet this tree was arched over and this tree was laying across the tip of it. See what I'm saying? That was all gone. And at the base of it, because that tree, not only was that tree fallen, it was pushed through the palmettos, pushed through. And then I'm talking a good, it's all in the video. You should really check that video out. It's at least 30-foot tall tree. And there's too much in its way. It would have never fallen that way. But it was put through there, right through the palmetto. Even the palmettos are over the tree. It didn't fall on the palmettos. It's under the palmettos. You know what I mean? Very weird situation. I documented it the first time I saw it. I went back to look at it again, all gone. It's like I went through some kind of time warp and I was in the wrong location or something. Something changed. It was and I do, if you watch the video, you'll see it. I don't know what happened there. But this situation is similar, but it's just the arch is gone. Just the arch. Nothing else. But I've been back to this location a dozen times, and I'm not finding anything in this spot ever again. I have not found sticks in the ground, trees bent, nothing.
So with that tree being bent the way it is, if it was stuck like that long enough, do you think that shape, even if it was pulled out of the ground, do you think it would still be bent over?
Um, I don't know. I think because we try not to disturb evidence when we find it, we like to leave it alone. Um, depending on the length of time, I would assume that if it was put that way, after a while, it would stay that way. It would just adapt to that angle and stay that way. But the rule of thumb with trees are trees have to grow towards the sun. So if the canopy is full, younger trees won't grow. But you'll see trees kind of crooked and moving up because it has a spot of sunlight and it's trying to get grow to that spot. So trees do make weird angles, but they don't go back to the ground. See what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but
Uh,
again, arches happen. I have to find arches that really strike my interest, like this one, to make me look at it and take it serious.
well, I'm wondering if something bent that over and it left it like that long enough for it to keep that shape. What I guess what would the reason be behind that? Are they trying to make some kind of a nest? Is that something that got ripped out eventually to be used to kind of weave in, and that's why they had it bent to give it that shape? Because you had mentioned that you were able to stand in that kind of vine weaving.
Are we talking about this arch or the other arch I was talking about?
Both is what I'm saying. I'm wondering if whatever did this was trying to get it to stay in that shape for a reason. If they
Well,
were
again, we don't know what arches mean or why they're doing it. Some people say it's a marker. Some people say that it's a portal. I mean, I've heard it all. I don't know. I don't know why they do that. And until we have long-term study, actual study of the creature itself to learn behavior and different things like that, which has not happened yet. Nobody has done a long-term study, like Jane Goodall and stuff like that. We don't know. We can make assumptions, we can make theories and hypotheses, but we really don't know. I don't know
yeah,
why.
yeah, that's why I was curious, just what your thoughts were. If
What I
there's a
can,
reason, I don't think it's
what
a
I have,
portal, but
yeah, what I have found that on the majority of the arches that we find, and we have found a lot of them. They're always near game trails. I've always find a game trail, So I mean, in very close proximity, like those two trees in the middle. If you walked 10 feet behind them, like going straight from this picture, walking straight into those trees, like you walked right between those trees, there's a game trail there. Okay, um, it's always near game trails. So I don't know if that's what it's marking. I don't know. I can only speculate, and I could be wrong. I hold that right to be wrong. So I don't know, and a lot.
it's just interesting that you're seeing the same thing over and over again in those woods. That makes me wonder what not only what is causing it, but why whatever is causing it, why.
We found an area that we found an arch, and then we looked around with binoculars, and we could see another arch. We'd walk to that arch, scan again, and find another arch. You know what I mean? It was like a trail. It was like these arches were going in a direction. So I don't know. But like I said, um, the arches that we're finding are near or right on sometimes game trails. So I don't know if that's what they're trying to tell. I don't think any of these structures and symbols and things that people claim have anything to do with humans as far as they're trying to tell us anything. I really don't think they're
I
trying to
agree.
communicate because we go into places that are so remote. How do they know I'm coming there to leave me a sign, to tell me something? It's impossible. I think it's for them and them only. I think they understand what it means, and it's for them only. Um, I don't see
Well,
anything that would.
and the other thing too is I don't think we should necessarily be applying human logic to their thought process. Our
Correct.
brains look at something and we perceive it a certain way, and to us it makes sense. But I would not assume that they think anything like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
because
may have a completely different logic system that they operate off of.
absolutely, absolutely. A prime example is other countries wave different, and we wave like this. But I've been to 13 countries. There's countries that wave like this. See what I'm saying? Everybody has their own bias of what they do. That's what we need to stop and not do is put our own personal bias into the evidence and say, well, this is what it is. Don't. It really bothers me when researchers talk in absolutes. See what I'm saying? And so if they say, oh, this is what this is, well, did you see Bigfoot do it? So you can't be absolute. See what I'm saying? I remind guys when we go out in the woods, when I go out with different people, is Mother Nature does do some weird stuff sometimes. She does. We just got to read the signs and understand what is natural, what is weird, and then what is actual evidence. Um, so I don't talk in absolutes on any of my stuff. Um, like a prime example, if you pull up the handprint, the possible handprint. So it's hard to tell in this, but it's like a chopping motion, like something laid down. It's the blade of the hand. You know, it's not the whole hand flat. It was like the blade of the hand, like at an angle. Um, and we have pictures where we put our hands by it, and it's definitely larger than man hands. It's larger than our hands. But we still believe that this is a juvenile. And I'll tell you why. It's very interesting. Handprints are a lot rarer than we find footprints, even though footprints are extremely rare as well. But we saw this handprint and said, wow, that is actually strange. Then we looked around, and if you pull up the footprint, this wasn't far from it. And you can see toes, what looks made possibly a mid-tarsal break, and the whole foot. Now, we say juvenile, I'm not saying an infant, but we're saying juvenile because this particular print was only, if I remember right, because it's a few years ago, was only about 8.5 to 9 inches long. But yet the heel was over 4 inches wide. That's an odd foot. That's a very odd foot. See what I'm saying? So whatever this was, it was younger. It wasn't. I don't think it was a grown adult male, but I think it was a juvenile, maybe teenager or a little older. And I think it coincides with the handprint. I think whatever it did, it went down or possibly was going down on all fours and then stood back up. See what I'm saying? And we had numerous of these prints. I'm just showing you one. There was numerous prints. We have a casting of one also, but I didn't put it in here. So this is an area that there was, what also helped us come to that possible conclusion was another researcher had spotted a juvenile in that exact same area. Now this area is Hungry Lands. This is the same area that Kerry Arnold and all of us would frequently visit, when he was in town. So there was a print. We have a handprint. You just have to, determine what you think it is and what happened. So
It looks like that's a pretty sandy area. Is that a beach or is that just sand in the woods or is that?
it's just a sandy area in the woods out there. It's just a sandy area. It's actually what we consider in Florida more of a clay. It's very compact. It's not, like you can see like in the back, those are footprints where we're walking around it. Somebody has boots on.
Yeah.
And we're not going very deep in it, but you're hitting the soft areas that were ridges, and you're basically pressing the ridges down. The ground itself is pretty solid.
So in other words, but it's not somewhere that someone would typically be walking without shoes on.
No, not way out there. No, I wouldn't walk out there
Because it looks like there's indentations at the top of the foot from a toes, and that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if it was something else, because if you're in a spot where it would not make sense for someone to not have shoes on, So that
I
it
tell
kind
people,
of, in my mind, that it makes it less likely to be any kind of a person making that print, even if you had ginormous feet. But
well, I one of the telltale signs for me, and I'm not a footprint expert, and we're going to get into that in a moment. This is a copy of the Patterson Gimlin footprint. It's very large. I'm just trying to show the toes. From the big toe to the little toe, it's a very short angle. Very short angle. If you look at a human foot, it's a very distinct angle. See what I'm saying? From big toe to little toe, very distinct angle. If you drew a line from the little toe to the big toe, tip to tip, where this is less of an angle. See what I'm saying? If you look at that picture, it's less of an angle. See what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's less of an angle, um, which would not be characteristic of a human print. You know what I mean? But again, we didn't see Bigfoot leave it. See what I'm saying? We're just documenting evidence that we find. Um, but it was very interesting. It caught us off guard. Um, we did follow these prints for quite some ways until we lost it. You know, it got into thick brush and stuff, and the substrate changed, and we weren't able to continue watching it. Um, Very interesting prints and stuff like that in coalition to the handprint. See what I'm saying? Even if somebody happened to be walking out there barefoot, I don't know the reason why they put their hand there. You know what I mean? I really don't know. So it's not the beach. There's not seashells to pick up. It's just woods. So I don't know. Um,
is there a lot of berry bushes or fruit trees or things like that, or any kind of water base around as well? Is there any water at all, or are you pretty far out?
the closest thing to it, there is a canal when we enter that area where we park our vehicles. So it's a few. That canal is it's a it's a few hundred yards away from these prints. So if something wanted to get water or whatever, it would have access to water very quickly. Um, but it does that doesn't take much. The one thing I don't fear when I get lost in the woods, which I have gotten lost, is not having fluids because Florida has a lot of water sources. So that's one of the things I don't worry about. Um, so there is a canal when you travel in there, and that canal runs for probably a half a mile. You know what I mean? It was probably created back in the days with the Conservation Corps back in the 1930s and 1940s um, as drainage and stuff like that. Because it's an old canal. It's a very old canal. And there's been reports that researchers have seen or heard a Bigfoot jump the canal. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. I would love to see that, but um,
I would love
this
to see that
area,
too.
yeah, this area is very rich in Class A sightings and stuff like that. That's why we went there. It's not one of our normal all the time, but it was definitely a place Kerry Arnold loved. He loved going to this area, and so we went out there, and we went out there quite a few times, at least probably half a dozen times. So another interesting thing is the last picture, the hunting reg. Now, it's going to be difficult to see on screen. People have to zoom in on it at home and stuff like that. Um, can you take the Sasquatch unredacted off the screen momentarily?
Yeah.
Uh, that way we see the whole thing. Now, where you see the green print on the left hand side, you know, see paragraphs, and then you see that green line. That area, it's that paragraph or the paragraph below it. The very last sentence in that paragraph. I wish we could zoom it in on here. Um, that very last paragraph, I can read it. It says, there is no taking of swamp or skunk apes. It says it right there in the line. If you go into hog section in the Lower Swanee National Wildlife Refuge, this is their hunting regulations. It says it at the very last sentence. It says specific hunt regulations, and it's talking about hogs in that, and they slipped that sentence in there. It says there is no taking of skunk or swamp or skunk apes. Why do you think they would put that in there if they're not recognizing that it exists? See what I'm saying? That's their subtle way of saying, because, and people ask, well, you know, why would they put that? Blah, blah. One, this is a government site. You can go to it. It is www.blah.gov. It's a government site. I don't think they're going to spend money and time to put in a practical joke. Two, they put it in the hog section for a reason. And I explained that to somebody, and I said, you know why? It dawned on me why they're putting that in the hog section. Because there's no regulations on hogs. I can bring you down to Florida to go hog hunting, and you don't need. I can hunt at night. I can hunt with a spotlight. I can hunt during the day. I can use whatever weapon I want. I can take as many as I want. So there's really no rule for hunting hogs other than just have a license. So if as a hunter, I'll read the deer section because that the regulations may change season to season. Hog section never changes. It's an invasive species. Slip it in where people aren't going to look. That's what I think they did. They slipped that in where people don't look.
So do you think that the state or the Forest Service at the federal level is aware that something's out there?
I do. I think on state government levels and federal, but I don't think so much that the federal will ever delve into it because I think it's low priority on a larger scale. I think they leave it up to the states. Hey, it's your state, you deal with it, type thing. I think that's why the states, and Florida is not the only one. There's multiple states that have protective rights for Bigfoot. It's in their regulations on multiple states. So are they doing it just to appease a small minority of people that believe in this thing? I don't know. See what I'm saying? I think it's more of covering their butts because if you do take one, they got you now. You broke the law. You broke the law.
Yes, that's
You
true.
think you're gonna? I hear it all the time. Where this one guy, he's always like, "Oh, if you shot a Bigfoot, you'd be rich." No, you wouldn't. You just poach something
Well,
that they're going to say, "Hey, it's in our hunting regulations. You ain't getting jack. We're taking it, and you're being fined, or maybe see jail term. But if you shut your mouth and don't say a word, we'll waive the fine, waive the jail, and you just go about your life like this didn't happen." See what I'm saying?
so let me ask you this. Why do you think that government agencies would not want us to know that they're out there?
Well, I think it breaks down. I think they're worried that it's going to break down our perception of reality and what we have been told by science is true. See what I'm saying? Um, First, we were told that no two hominids exist at the same time, and now they're finding out that's not true. Um, that it's more of a bush instead of a tree. They've now found that up to five hominids have lived at the same time. Humans, modern humans, have been around 300,000 years, and the Neanderthal was here for I forgot what it was now, but I want to say 3 million years or 3 million or 1 million years. So at some point, for 300,000 years, we coexist. Even half that, let's say half that 300,000 years, that's 150,000 years that we coexisted with another hominid. See what I'm saying? So,
Well, at one point, I think there was something like 24 different species of humanity that was out there that they've concluded that may have overlapped at some point or another.
yes, absolutely. But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they didn't say that. They said only one can exist due to dominance. Well, what I can tell you is you put a Neanderthal, a large race of Neanderthals, against humans 300,000 years ago, they were dominant. They were dominant. My question is, how did we surpass them? How did we make them go extinct and we did not? But because I think it's about brain power. See what I'm saying? We were able to adapt and create weapons and create ways of killing better or hunting better and stuff like that. And then we were populating faster. And if we start taking all the food sources, you don't have time to fight us. You have to leave and find more food sources. So that's pushing animal or wildlife or whatever out of existence by doing that. And I think that's possibly a theory that might have happened. Why did Neanderthal went extinct? Because we were not around as long as they were. We were the new guys on the block, but yet we won. See what I'm saying? Because we're smarter. That goes into the intelligence of Sasquatch. Me and you discussed that one time, defining what is intelligence.
Yep.
What is it? See what I'm saying? And me and you really fall on the same ground as far as intelligence goes. Everything is more intelligent than us in the woods. A panther, a Florida
Oh,
panther, is
absolutely.
smarter than me in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
Way smarter than me.
Well, large primates are generally intelligent in general. My personal belief is always that Sasquatch is more than likely somewhere in the primate family tree. I don't know where in the family tree, whether it's next to the tree, on the tree, but if you, I think we talked about, if you took a silverback gorilla and dropped it in New York City, and you took you and me and dropped us in the Congo, the three of us will be dead in 24 hours.
Yep.
But if you take that same gorilla and drop it in a different jungle it's never been to, it'll know how to survive almost instantly. Just like if you took us from New York and dropped us in LA, we'd be just fine.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd be able easily find my way home. And that's what I'm saying. You have to define intelligence, and I'm not saying it irritates me, but it bothers me that people that come up with those conclusions on how smart Bigfoot is, they're really not looking at it logically and breaking it down. And I tell people all the time, let's break down. Let's look at what is intelligence. Is it smart? Yeah, I think it is smart. I think it's self-aware. I think it can make decisions. But is it as smart as us or smarter? No, it's not smarter than us. See what I'm saying? Because if he was, he would have invented the gun. But we did. See what I'm saying? We invented the four wheeler that'll get me out in the woods faster, or the electric bike, and you know, uh, they're not inventing it. Sasquatch uses simple tools at best. If it's a rock to break open a nut, see what I'm saying? But they're not utilizing fire. And I guarantee you, Sasquatch knows what fire is. He's been around for a long time. See what I'm saying? I ask people all the time, do you think Sasquatch was here before us? And they said, oh, absolutely. Okay, that means at minimal, he's been here more than 300,000 years. In 300,000 years, they would have learned fire or utilized fire, but they don't. See what I'm saying? Well, the answer is mostly is they don't need it. They can eat raw meat. They can do this. They eat berries and stuff like bears don't. Bears eat all that stuff and don't utilize fire. Absolutely. Now you're thinking. See what I'm saying? Now you're thinking. You know what I mean? So you have to come up with the answers to back up what your theory is. See what I'm saying? I think they're smart, but they're not as smart as us. See what I'm saying?
well, I think their biggest disadvantage is, and again, I'm basing this purely off my belief that they are in the primate family tree. And I'm operating off that assumption when I say this theory, but I think it's their reproductive ability is probably significantly slower than ours, and that may have been the very thing that prevented their race from becoming dominant to begin with. If you look at large gorillas, apes, typically you're talking 7 to 9 years between pregnancies, where we could pop a kid out, human female, you can go every year, go, 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 go. And unfortunately, we see all the time where there's people out there with a dozen kids, and
Right.
that's typically not something you see in the animal kingdom. They don't. There's balance in the animal kingdom. They they
Correct.
they don't take more than they need. They don't. Glutton is not a thing in the animal kingdom. That's a purely
Correct.
human thing, and part of that is because we populate so fast. Because if you remember, at a time, people weren't living past 30 or 40, but we were popping out kids left and right. So we were surpassing the other species in numbers, I think, more than anything else. And if a Sasquatch is in fact something along the primate evolution, then it's very possible that they simply don't reproduce at the same rate we can. And that's the thing.
I
Until we can get one of their bodies, there's just so much of their biology we don't know. We're
absolutely.
assuming that they can have multiple offspring, but perhaps they can't. Maybe there's some genetic challenge to that, and that's why the numbers are so scarce.
Yeah, I because I think that if it's in the primate realm, especially, it would have to lean more. If it's in that realm, it's more in the level of gorillas than chimpanzees or orangutans. I think it's more above the gorillas. And gorillas' gestation period is almost the same as humans, it's 9 to 10 months. Um, So I think the gestation period would probably be the same, but you're right. Is there a need to have a baby every 9 months or every 10 months? See what I'm saying? I don't think so. And especially environments, the environment changes, food sources change, everything changes. So um, I think breeding changes with that. I think you're onto something. And that's the great thing is coming up with these theories that actually make sense. Actually make sense. See what I'm saying? Um, things that you can grasp on, things that you can. It makes sense. It's logic.
So let me ask you this: why do you think that they have been? Or let me rephrase: how do you think they've been able to avoid us, or is there in fact some other organization, if you will, at play? Someone, or something that's helping them avoid us, or do they have perhaps some natural instinct, or is it just a survival thing that they, you know what I mean? If they're not necessarily as intelligent as us, but intelligent enough to look at them and say, "Hey, these guys are killing each other in record numbers. Stay away." Or is that why they're avoiding us, or is there just so few of them that that's why we haven't quite found them yet? I guess we haven't discovered them, so to speak.
Well, I think one is survivability. I think they know that to survive and to continue a breeding population, they would have to avoid us. They would absolutely have to avoid us. Um, and I think on top of that, they're good at what they do. They're very good at what they do. They know the woods. They know how to hide. They know how to blend in. It has nothing to do with stepping into portals or turning into an orb. I have pictures of a deer in one of my stuff that I take this picture and I showed this picture and I said, check out the deer. I literally had comments going, "There's no deer. Quit clickbaiting." Until I showed the second picture circled and there's a deer there. And they're like, "Holy crap, I didn't see it." Because deer blend in. They got that natural color that blends in, especially in saplings of pine sapling, And I didn't even see the deer till it flicked its ear. It moved its ear, and I looked, and there's a deer in front of me, and I never saw it. I think they're that good. I think they can blend into their environment. I think it's a natural ability. Um, and I think they're smart, and I think they know when to be quiet. Almost every animal in the woods, when they're alerted to, especially humans, they freeze. They freeze. Why do they freeze? Because we see movement before we see color. See what I'm saying? If something moves, we will spot it in a heartbeat. See what I'm saying? So if that deer had not moved his ear, I would have never saw him if he just stayed still. Rabbits do it, panthers do it. A lot of animals do that. They just freeze. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happens is when people think this thing disappeared, he didn't disappear. He took a moment when you weren't paying attention, and he slipped into an area that you couldn't see him, and he froze and he got quiet. Because in the military, the number one rule of camouflage is break up your um, silhouette. So there is no distinguishing human shoulders, human head. See what I'm saying? You break the silhouette up. And so a lot of times you don't need a lot of color. You just, greens and blacks and browns. You just need to break up your silhouette more. See what I'm saying? That's why they put sticks in their helmets and stuff like that, and sticks on their backpacks and stuff. It's not to always lay on the ground and blend in. It breaks up your silhouette. You know, I think they're good at that. I think their hair helps with that. Like I said, they're smart in their environment. Very smart.
So, what do you think about Native American legends and folklore? Because they talk about living in harmony with these creatures at some point. In fact, some of them refer to them as a different tribe of man or human that they coexisted with, which would, if that's an accurate account of what was happening hundreds of years ago, that would seem that they would be, in fact, more intelligent. But either way, every Native American or First Nations people, when you go into Canada, across the country, has some kind of myth or story about a wild man, a hairy man, another kind of human or another tribe, or the word Sasquatch actually comes from a First Nations people in Canada, and that's how they referred to them. They were their forest guardians.
Well, I think because in the same sense, you'll hear the same folklore from the same Indians that don't go in the woods because this thing will get you. Don't go over there because you won't come back. They steal our children. They steal our women. They steal our crops and stuff like that. So it's one of those things. Are they willing to habituate with you or not? I think the ones that say that they were respectful and they traded with, I think it was habituation like we do now. They openly said you can have some of this. See what I'm saying? And they would come in and probably take it and leave. See what I'm saying? No different if I leave a pumpkin pie on my back porch and Bigfoot came and took the pumpkin pie and left. We have a lot of signs of habituation where they come and they take something. And they might have left something in return, a rock, a shell, something. So you would get, if you were going to describe that and you're a native and you don't have the words really to describe, you would say, we have a relationship with them, we're trading. See what I'm saying? But in a sense, is it the same as we're doing today when we're trying to habituate with them and have them come in and take what I'm offering? See what I'm saying? Again, I I think even in native folklore, I don't know of native folklore where they walked over and handed it to them. See what I'm saying? I think it was left. You see what I'm saying? Because in some of the native folklore, they'll tell you, take this in the woods with you, leave it as an offering, and then when you leave, so they're not upset. So you're not handing them anything. See what I'm saying? It could be that type of scenario because again, you have the accounts from Native American tribes that they feared these things. Don't go in the mountains because the hairy giant will get you, and will harm you, you know. So
Well, that's interesting because in Alaska, where Port Locke is, if you're familiar with that, the native population there talk about the hairy man's territory and their territory. Even till this day, they stay out of his territory, and that's always it's always been fascinating to me that there's actual boundaries established, which would mean there is some kind of intelligence if that's in fact what is happening, that they can recognize where a line is. You know what I mean? Because that seems a very human construct to me, boundaries.
but it may not be a line as so much as it's don't go past this ridge of this mountain. Don't go past the end of this forest. The rest, the other forest on the other side of the river is ours. Because you hear that in some. We don't go on that side of the river, or we don't go on that mountain. See what I'm saying? So I don't think there's
Yeah.
boundary lines so much as this is ours, that is yours. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Again, like I said, we can draw theories and hypotheses, which is fun. Which is fun in the Bigfoot community is to create these, but we have to be logical about our theories. You know what I mean? That's why your theories are very logical. These could be this and that and that. You know what I mean? Um, like I said, no experts. We don't know until we have a
No, no.
long term um, scientific observation of these creatures. I truly believe that for anything to really happen, I think it will probably take a body. I'm not advocating killing a Bigfoot at all. Zero. I'm not. And I surely will not be that person to take that shot. But it is sad to say that's what it takes for science just to believe us, to listen to us. That is their requirement. They want a specimen. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's that's a sad state. You know what I mean? So
Well, the other thing with the Native American lore that's always fascinated me is scientists have told us, I mean, as far as I know, that they still believe that no primate other than us has ever existed in North America. Or others to rephrase, not existed in the last million years, give or take. I think Gigantopithecus, they found some bones in Texas not too long ago that dated back
Really?
hundreds of
A gi-
thousands of years.
was it
But
Gigantopithecus?
yeah, I think so. I'll have to go back and double check the article, but I was reading that they had found some bones that they think were related to that. But it was hundreds of thousands of years old, so it wouldn't explain anything now. But in the last, half a million years, allegedly there's been no primates in North America. Okay,
Right.
well, I'll concede that point. However, I had one question that's always haunted me. If that's the case, when the European settlers got here, they encountered the native population and they described to them the hairy man. How come the European settlers said, "Oh, that's must be some kind of primate"? Because how would a native population know to describe a primate unless they had seen one?
Well, right, and that's what brings up that when I question things, and I'll make it clear to the audience. When you go into Bigfoot research, or you are a researcher, you have to have a level of questioning things. You know, you have to have a level of skepticism. Skepticism creates questions. Questions create answers. Does that mean you can be a believer and have skeptic questions? Because that's what's going to help us draw the conclusions. See what I'm saying? So when I hear stories like that without actually seeing the story, somebody's telling me the story, or you know, you know, or you see it on a documentary, but they're telling you on a documentary this, this, and this, but they're not showing you the forms. They're not showing you where they got this information. They're just telling you this is what happened in 1896, but they're not showing you the documentation. Because when were gorillas discovered? See what I'm saying? When were they
Yeah,
discovered? That was the first time humans saw apes, when we discovered apes. Even when the African in the Congo and stuff told scientists and archaeologists about apes, they didn't believe them. They didn't believe them until they saw them, and then they started documenting and doing a scientific method and blah blah blah. They even captured one and took it back to Europe and different places. So when you go back to Leif Erikson and stuff, when he documented in his journals that he saw these giant hairy beings on the beaches as they came in, and then they saw these things, and then they ran off into the woods. He described it as exactly what he saw: large, hairy, man-like beasts. We say man-like because we have that bias. They're standing on 2 feet. They got two arms. They got a head. They got a shoulder. So it's got to be human-like because that's what we have the comparison to. He didn't compare it to a gorilla. See what I'm saying? So when you hear
right.
somebody back before the day and age that and people can Google when were gorillas actually found, and anything prior to that, it couldn't have been called a gorilla. See what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
think it was the 20th century, if I'm not mistaken. It was pretty late that we
Absolutely. I think I want to.
discovered the
Yeah, because I want to say it was 1920s or
silverbacks,
30s or something like that. Yeah,
something
and
like that. So it really hasn't. It's been maybe about 100 years since we actually discovered gorillas,
correct. They just
and
found a
until
new
that, they
breed of
were a
gorilla.
cryptid.
They just found a new breed of gorilla this year.
Oh
Totally new
wow!
breed that they did not know existed. Totally new breed. I forgot the name of it. I forgot the name of it. It's something gorilla, like you have the Congo gorilla or whatever. It's I think it began with a C, but I read the article, and they found it on. They set up cameras and they caught it on film, and it's a new breed of gorilla. See what I'm saying? We just found in 2025. See what I'm saying? Um, so there are things out there that exist that we're not aware of. Now we can call it a gorilla because we have a comparison. You know what I mean? We have comparisons. But back then, when they first saw the gorilla, there was no comparison at all because we didn't know what we were looking for. It's the same with Sasquatch. We don't have anything. We're comparing it to primates or slightly comparing it to humans because that's all we have to compare it with. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
we get so many different descriptions of this thing. I can talk to one person that had an encounter and said it had a conical head, but I can talk to somebody else that said no, it was rounded. It didn't have a conical head. I can have some that say the face was hairy. I got some that said it had no face on it, no hair on the face. I've had people tell me blue eyes. I've had people tell me red eyes. I mean it changes. See what I'm saying? Um, we have to start taking these things and start finding a common denominator is what we need to do. So
Well, I mean, it seems like most sightings, people typically find them to be anywhere from 8 to, well, I guess it depends if you're in Alaska or not, but 8 to 10 feet tall in the lower 48. In Alaska, I've talked to people who have stated they've seen them 12, 15 feet tall, which, being the environment that it is a very harsh environment. It kind of makes sense that maybe something would. I feel like everything's bigger in Alaska, kind of like Texas. Everything's bigger.
well, what
You
was
know,
that?
moose are bigger.
What's that theory about the closer you get to the equator, the smaller things get?
Yeah,
There's a term for it. Actually a scientific term for it. So when you go to South America, there's the monkeys are smaller, the gorillas smaller, the deer are smaller, whatever. Look at Florida compared to Ohio or Michigan or something like that. Our deer are smaller. We're closer to the equator. I think that's has a lot to do with the Florida skunk ape. The skunk ape is a Bigfoot. I don't want anybody to get it too confused. Um, Ours are smaller. I think we average anywhere between 6 to 7 feet, but if there are 8 footers, I think that's more the rarity than common. See what I'm saying? Our eye shine was 8 feet tall. I think that's more of a rarity. I think that is probably geared more towards an alpha male, in that tribe or in that area. It's that single alpha male. But I think in the most part, ours run anywhere from 6 to 7 feet. What I have found common in the state of Florida is the size of the feet. On average, Florida's skunk ape or Bigfoot is 15 inches, 15 and a half inches. That's what you'll hear it a lot. Oh, I measured it and it was 15 inches. That is a common number down here in Florida. But if you go up to the Pacific Northwest or up north, now you're getting it to 17 inches, 18 inches. See what I'm saying? Well, it's a larger animal. It's going to need a larger base to hold its frame up. So it doesn't surprise me that the feet are bigger. You know what I mean?
do you think it could have something to do with isolated? That's the word I'm looking for. Isolated genetics. That the population is just that the genetic diversity is limited in certain areas. Perhaps Florida has a smaller population, so the same traits. Whereas you get to the Pacific Northwest, there's less humans. Same with Alaska, there's less people, so you have a wider genetic range, and certain characteristics have taken hold.
I believe, and this is just again my theory, and I'll give you a prime example, is where the 168 was filmed is a 90,000 acre area, but it's completely surrounded by residential and farmland. So it's cut off from any kind of migratory routes or anything like that. Okay. Could it do it? It could move to other areas, but it's not going from South Florida to North Florida. It's just not going to make it. See what I'm saying? So I think there may be a level of incest, where they're to maintain a viable population, they may breed with themselves, or a tribe broke off, but they are close cousins. See what I'm saying? Or
Sure.
this brother, and this brother, you know, or this brother went here and a sister went here, but yet later down the road he takes her as a bride, or whatever. Things like that happen, and it does happen. In gorillas, and gorillas are very strict about possession. The alpha male and his females. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if a gorilla has a choice. Once it reaches a breeding maturity, he has choices. He can either compete for alpha and take the women, take the females, or he can be subservient and just stay with the pack and just be content that he's alive, or he can leave and create his own tribe. See what I'm saying? I think that same thing happens when we have what we call the lone Sasquatch that's out there by himself and stuff like that. Could be one of these ones that's out there actually looking for a tribe or actually looking for a bride. You know what I mean? Somebody they can mate with and create its own unit. Um, so I think in that case, I think incest, you know, probably happens. You know what I mean? I don't know. I would assume, you know, um, dogs do it to each other. You know what I mean? When they grow up, puppies and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not a primate expert, but I would assume that in the chimpanzees or the smaller primates, they probably there's some ancestral stuff going on there, um, because it's about survival. You know, it's about survival. It's only humans that have
Well,
a problem with it. You know, which we should, which we should.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Well, our population is diverse enough where we have plenty of opportunities for genetic diversity. We don't need to be inbreeding with
correct.
family
But
members.
right, and again, remember, gorillas and primates and stuff like that. They have a different genetic code than we do. You know what I mean? Russia proved that when Russia tried to crossbreed humans and gorillas, they were looking to create a master warrior. And I watched this documentary. This woman actually volunteered for it. This Russian woman raised her hand and said, "I'll do it." So they attempted to impregnate her with gorilla, you know, happy juice, and she wouldn't get pregnant. They tried multiple times; she wouldn't get pregnant. So then they reversed it and took her eggs and inseminated a female with her eggs and with a gorilla semen, and she didn't get pregnant because we're genetically not. It's not going to happen. See what I'm saying? It's just not going to happen. And I think that's when people say that a Bigfoot raped a woman and it's a crossbreed between human and primate. I don't agree with that scenario because what was the scenario to make that happen? If a Bigfoot kidnapped a woman and successfully raped her, okay, who raised the baby? Did Sasquatch keep the woman alive for 9 months? Understood that he had to keep her alive for 9 months, and then she gave birth, and then they got rid of her and kept the baby? Or did she go back to her tribe, pregnant? Then, when she gave birth, what did they do to the baby? Did they keep it, or did they say, "Oh no, this is an
I
abomination. This is evil"? We don't know, but there's no
I've come
account of it.
across that a few times in my research, and I don't necessarily agree with the conclusions that people have reached. I agree with you. I don't think that we would be compatible.
No,
But I've come across that where there are claims that a half human, half Sasquatch hybrid has been created. But you know, there's I don't know what the actual medical term is, but gigantics disease, where
right,
people don't stop growing. Those guys typically die very young, early 20s at the latest, I think, because their bodies just continuously get so massive and their organs fail. And I myself am 6'8", and there's 7 feet tall people out there, and
right,
I'm not particularly hairy, but I have a friend who was shaving in sixth grade. And
yeah,
today, if he shaves at 8, he's got a beard by 12:30, 1 o'clock. I mean, it's
I,
insane. Like if you,
I,
you know what I'm saying? So there
absolutely,
are explanations of why people might look more animal like. I mean, we've all seen people out there that are just very hairy. You can see those mountain guys with these massive beards or long hair, or their beard goes up on their face more.
right.
There are certain human characteristics that, under the right circumstances, someone may mistake as something it's not.
Well,
But
again, like I said, I
we
think we
share,
we put in our human
we,
bias.
well, yeah, exactly. And we share 99%. Actually, I think it's over 99% of our DNA with a chimpanzee. And it's one chromosome that's different. Now, a Sasquatch, imagine if they are very similar to us, but that's the only difference is one chromosome. We'll even say half a chromosome. Maybe there's just something about that particular chromosome that doesn't quite line up with ours. If one chromosome difference, but everything else is the same, produces a chimpanzee and produces us, is it possible that they're closer related to us where we could interbreed? I mean, maybe,
Well, I
but
mean, that's where it falls
I
into
just
that.
don't see it. I
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's where it falls into that metaphysical side of it, where they're like, well, it was aliens. Aliens took the DNA and created us, and blah 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 blah. Well, when you say that, you have to bring receipts. You have to explain why do you think that is even possible. See what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You got to look at this thing logically and scientifically if you're ever going to prove it. You're never going to prove it to anybody or science when you and I keep bringing up these quotes and stuff, so we're going to have to dive into Dr. Jeff Meldrum, because Dr. Jeff Meldrum made one of the greatest quotes, and I always give him credit for this quote. You can't solve an unknown with an unknown. So you can't sit here and create these outlandish ideas, you know what I mean, because you watch Ancient Aliens and then felt that this is what happened, because you're trying to prove an unknown with an unknown. See what I'm saying? And I bring up Dr. Meldrum because of that quote. And if you could pull up his picture real quick, because we never brought him up at the beginning. I do want to say we lost Dr. Jeff Meldrum today. He passed away today of brain cancer. I understand it was quick, and he was surrounded by family. I want to put prayers out to his family and his close friends. I met him. We got an opportunity to sit and talk. I did throw some great questions at him, especially dealing with the state of Florida and Sasquatch here. He's a great man. He was very nice, very generous, very kind, and he's very funny. He makes little jokes. I just want to say that. Only because I brought up, one, he needs to be recognized. I think the biggest thing that hits us is the fact that by losing Dr. Meldrum today, we lost one of the only scientists that actually backed us up, that actually took this topic serious. And he traveled the world to prove, and so we lost a great advocate in the science community. I think losing that Jeff Meldrum really set the football back a little bit.
And for those who don't know, his background was in anatomy and anthropology. And he
Correct.
was with the University of, I believe, Idaho, or Idaho State University,
Yes.
for many, many years. So he's not just, I call myself doctor, or I have a doctor in psychology. He literally had a scientific background.
He was a tenured professor.
He studied it. He's was very knowledgeable about anatomy, anthropology, and I think I'm assuming his background was probably biological anthropology to complement his anatomy background. So he really had a very scientific outlook to things, and a very I guess, as you said earlier, kind of almost a skeptic look at it, because he knew what questions to ask, and he knew what the answers weren't already, just because of his background and his knowledge on DNA and how everything works. So he was, really a great person to be in the field.
He was my hero in the Bigfoot world. I looked up to him, and I wish I was as intelligent as he was. I'm thankful that he was one of those ones on the list that I got to meet and talk to and ask direct questions and got his honest opinion. He was a true believer. He believed in Sasquatch. His when I asked him directly, do you believe Bigfoot exists? He looked right at me and said, there is enough evidence that says money needs to be spent and invested on this topic. He can't say yes or no. He said the right words to protect himself, but you get it clearly what he's saying. See what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah. I think he believed that they're out there, but as a scientist, he understands that there has to be evidence, and it has to be verified, and then it has to be repeated and continuously repeated.
Correct.
In other words, to make it an actual fact. And that's one thing in this field that we've struggled with, is unfortunately is being able to recreate evidence that we find and documentation that we find over and over again.
Correct. And that's where that long-term study has to happen at some point. I would like in the future of Bigfoot research is hopefully somebody can get close enough and with the ability to tag one. And I think that would answer a lot of questions. If we can tag one with some level of GPS, you know what I mean, that darts into them, and then when they reach down and rip the dart out, it's okay because the probe is already inside of them, size of a grain of rice, and we can track them, and we can start understanding patterns and where there's one, there might be others. If it stops in a location for any length of time, that might be an area that he has a clan. You know what I mean? If he stops at a location for a long period of time, we know he's dead. You know what I mean? So I think that's where I would like to see the science go is towards tagging one. I'm not big. After my first encounter, I gave up deer hunting, sold all my equipment, sold all my gear, and I've never killed an animal since. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be out there and hunting Bigfoot or trying to kill Bigfoot. I think there's other ways around it. I think there's other things that we can do, and I think tagging is one of them. You know, I think a lot of I get it a lot because I have a lot of equipment. I have drones, I have thermals, I have everything. And people say, well, if you have a thermal drone, you should be able to prove this thing. But that's not true. I have a lot of tools, and none of them they're just tools. That none of them is the tell all. This does this, and you have to take all that information and put it together to formulate the information. A thermal drone can't see past the canopy. If it's flying over a forest, it cannot see down into the canopy. So that theory's out of the way. See what I'm saying? So it's good. I like a thermal drone, but it has its place. But once it reaches its restrictions, then you got to find another tool.
So speaking of I guess, well, technology in that regard, what do you think about the Patterson Gimlin film?
Well, bringing back Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and I am a true believer of the Patterson Gimlin film. Dr. Jeff Meldrum did a symposium where he took some time, a couple hours, and he started at the toes and worked his way up to the head, analyzing the entire Patterson Gimlin film and explains why it's real, why this is this and why that's that, because that's his expertise is bipedal motion and primate motion and anthropology and stuff like that. That's his wheelhouse. And he's looking at this as a scientist, breaking it down step by step, inch by inch of this thing's body, and came to the conclusion that this is a real entity. This is a real subject right here. And before that, I was on the fence. See what I'm saying? Just analyzing film and just clearing film up like MK Davis does, or the poor math that Thinker Thunker does. And trust me, guys, Thinker Thunker has been debunked many times. His math is off. His math is wrong. They didn't come up with the answers that an anthropologist would, looking at the creature's motion. See what I'm saying? So I think really that's going to be Dr. Jeff Meldrum's legacy. Is one is footprint casts. He was an expert on footprint casts. I saw a documentary one time, and it might have been Survivor Man or somebody tried to hoax him purposely, just scientifically hoaxing, not be a pain in the butt hoax or trying to make fun of. He tried to do something to see how good Jeff Meldrum was. Jeff Meldrum caught it. He caught the one that they made. They created this footprint, and he showed them why this was a hoax. He says, you guys got hoaxed. And that all of a sudden he's like, yep, he's right on that one. Then he took a copy of one that Jeff Meldrum already had in his archives. You see what I'm saying? And he presented it. Yeah. And Dr. Jeff Meldrum kept staring at it going, there's something's interesting about this one. This one right here is interesting. He went to his archives and pulled that exact same print and said, this is a real print, but it's a copy of this one. You know what I mean? He was that
Yeah.
good. See what I'm saying? He was that good. Um, and like I said, his science that he brought to it, and that's what it takes if you're going to prove this thing. Like I said, it's a sad day. I was really shocked when I got home and I started reading my posts, and people were letting me know that Dr. Jeff Meldrum had passed away, and it broke my heart. And because we lost a huge, huge asset in this field of research, huge asset. There's not a lot of scientists that come on board with us at all. I
No,
can
there's
only
not.
I can think of one other
They,
off the you know, and he blew it. He was another Harvard PhD, and I won't get into it because I do respect the man, absolutely respect the man, but he made a mistake, and instead of owning it, he doubled up on it, and it ended up costing him. He's not taken seriously in the Bigfoot community anymore. So losing scientists is a difficult pill to swallow, and Jeff Meldrum was number one. You can't talk about Bigfoot without mentioning Jeff Meldrum or Ron Moorhead or something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Bendernagel, Green. There's just names out there that you just can't not mention in the Bigfoot community. Um, and he was one. He was probably number one. You know what I mean?
Well, and for those of us who've been in this for a while, when you at different conferences and stuff, sometimes you'll meet somebody who with a scientific background, and ask them questions and say, "Have you ever thought about speaking at one of these things?" And the answer is always the same: is no, not really. If my coworkers ever found out I believed in Bigfoot, it would probably torpedo my career. And it does seem like that stigma is finally kind of lifting.
Yeah.
But for a lot of years, I mean, it was basically a death sentence, which the fact that Dr. Meldrum had a successful career and was a huge advocate for the Sasquatch community is really a testament to him, because most people would have been destroyed by that. And he not only embraced it, but he took it to a completely new level that we would never be at without someone like him stepping in and saying, "No, I'm an expert. I'm telling you, there's something here."
Well, he defines. I have a lot of books. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time researching and reading and to formulate where I feel comfortable making whatever comment, because it's my belief, and I don't push it on anybody. I listen to everybody's belief, and I don't push it. Even if somebody comes to me with paranormal, that's their belief, and I don't bust them for it. I may not agree with it, but I don't dislike the person because they have that. But I have a book by Ivan Sanderson, and he was one of the original guys that coined the phrase cryptozoologist. And I think that term has been bashed. You got people all the time calling themselves cryptozoologists. And first of all, I'll make it very clear to the audience: there is no formal school, college, or anything that teaches cryptozoology, period. There isn't one. You cannot be a certified, legitimate cryptozoologist. Now, there are some pay me $1,300 online and I'll send you a certificate that says you're a cryptozoologist. All you got to do
Yeah.
is take this course. The course is not about crypto, it's about investigating and how to gather evidence and stuff like that. Ivan Sanderson made it very clear on when he coined the phrase of cryptozoologist is it is a biologist, anthropologist, archaeologist, something in one of those fields that takes the science that they are PhDs in and applies it to an unknown species. See what I'm saying? They're taking the skills that they learned to find apes and saying, hey, I'm going to take these same skills to see if I can't find Bigfoot. So that defines them as a cryptozoologist. See what I'm saying? But they have that degree in the background. See what I'm saying? And they're looking for an unknown. Jeff Meldrum, in my definition, he never called himself a cryptozoologist. So don't say he ever did. I call him a cryptozoologist because he meets that criteria. He has that professorship. He has that PhD in anthropology and archaeology, and he applied that science to an unknown creature. See what I'm saying? So anybody that's out there calling themselves, you can have a channel called the Cryptozoologist Channel. That's fine and everything. But I just get a little bit irked when somebody says I'm a cryptozoologist, or they put it on their business card or something like that. I'm a researcher and investigator. That's all I am. See what I'm saying? At best, really, it's a hobby. I don't get paid for this. I make no money with this. Everything I have is out of pocket. You know, um, even my podcast, we don't get paid for that. My research channel, I get paid for that. So when I go camping, I spend all the money for food and gas and um, camping gear and all. It's all out of pocket. See what I'm saying? I'm a researcher as for less of a better term, or an investigator. I'm investigating something. I'm looking into it. See what I'm saying? So I think some great books out there. Steve Coles has some great books. I encourage everybody to go on Amazon and look at Steve. Just look up Steve Cole. He has some great books. I have his books. Great books. Great if you want to get into this field and actually investigate the right way and ask the right questions. Great books. Um, really, really, really encourage people to read those. I do have an autographed book by Dr. Jeff Meldrum. That's in that picture you saw there. That's me and him after a conversation, and he autographed a book for me. That's also who I got the Patty footprint from. This, I got that. So I'm happy I got that because I got that from Dr. Jeff Meldrum. So I also have an autographed book from Ron Moorhead. Anybody can have that. Email me if you want it. I'm not a big fan. Um, he autographed it, but I don't want it. I mean, it's on my shelf. I mean, I can say I have an autographed book from Ron Moorhead, but that's about as far as it's worth to me. So,
So let me ask you this: what do you think about other cryptids out there? Mothman, Dogman, Jersey Devil, Wendigos.
the easy answer is my plate is full with Bigfoot. So to add another cryptid on it would just probably send me over the edge. I like to believe in my mind, for safety reasons, that Dogman does not exist. I would hate to ever come to the conclusion that that is actually in the woods. But as experience goes of 20 years of doing this, I've never come across anything that says that any other cryptid exists. As much time as I spent in the woods, I have not found anything of any other type of cryptid. Now, does that say they don't exist? No, I'm saying Richard, have not come across any evidence that says other cryptids exist. I think sometimes when people see something, they misidentify it. It could have been a Sasquatch, but because of the angle that they saw or what it was doing at the time that they saw, they call it a dogman. Could be the same creature. We don't know. You know what I mean? Until we can get away from blurry pictures and stuff like that. A prime example: my Facebook page, Bigfoot Florida guy. Don't try to post anything like that on my channel because it won't get accepted. I will delete it immediately. We need good evidence. If you've got a good film or a good photograph, then let's talk. But this blob squatch, when it actually is an oak leaf from 3 inches away, that stuff's got to stop. It's got to stop, and we need to be better as researchers. And if this is just something you're interested in, if there's somebody in the crowd that this is just something they love listening to, they love things about Bigfoot, then you need to be the biggest skeptic when these people put those out there and say, come on now. You know what I mean? Who you're trying to fool.
So really the last, I guess, really compelling piece of photo or video evidence would have been Patterson Gimlet film, and that's been almost 50 years. So why do you think there hasn't been any other major sightings captured
there have been
film?
I think there has. I think there are some good ones out there. I've seen some good ones out there that made me scratch my head and go, okay, we may have something here. Um, like there's this one. It's a Canadian. It's a family, and I got to look it up because I can find it, and I forgot the title of the video. It's very short, but the family's out there. I think they're walking up a creek bed, and this thing is pretty far away, a few hundred yards, but it stands up and walks around the tree it was in front of and disappears into the woods. It is just in that film. It's very quickly. It stands up and goes around the tree, so it's a very quick film. But I've watched it 1,000 times. It is large. It is bipedal, and it is covered in hair. That's what you can get from this video. So it's compelling to me. And you've got there were multiple witnesses. You know what I mean? And luckily, the father, I guess, who was the one who was filming it, was like, was, you know, in his right mind enough to pull out and film it. It's very brief, and it goes through there. I think the Freeman footage is real. When you look at the Freeman footage, it looks a lot like Patty. It really does. You can clearly see that it's extremely large. It turns its head and looks right at him, just like Patterson Gimlin film. And it just, to me, it looks real until, but you got to remember all these people. If it's Patterson, if it's Freeman, or it's anybody else, there's always a skeptic side. There's always that side that's going to bash the hell out of it, claim that they did they've proven it and all that. Not enough for me. You might get enough to confuse me and make me think twice about, and I might lean on the fence, but nothing's ever out of those particular films, the Patterson film, Freeman film, the one I saw on that. I got to find that one in Canada, but it's very interesting footage. And there's some other ones out there that I've seen that I'm like, that's very interesting. I like that. We did one just recently. I was on a podcast, Dirt Road Bigfoot, and he brought up the Honey Island Swamp Monster. And there's footage there. And it looks really good. See what I'm saying? And that person, I forget his name now, that filmed it, he spent a lifetime after his first encounter trying to prove the existence of this thing. And he had castings, and but I said, well, there's one problem. As good as it looks, as it's walking through the swamp, he's got a good picture. It's an old black and white, just like the Patterson film. It's an old grainy footage. Look it up. It's good. The Honey Island Swamp Monster. My question is, because the film was found after his death, years later, when they were going through his belongings, they found this film and watched it, and he filmed this thing. For a man that was trying to prove this thing and actually took ridicule for trying to prove this thing, why didn't he ever show that film? That was my biggest question on that. Why didn't he ever show the film? If you go into history of it, I think it was his granddaughter or something like that, or somebody in his family found it, and they're the ones who brought it public. But he didn't, and he filmed it. I don't know, but it's very intriguing film. Very intriguing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hope with technology, but also, unfortunately, with AI, I've seen some pretty good fakes floating around. That you really do have to look at it. It is hard to tell, and I think that's going to be a challenge we're going to come into in the coming years. Is yes, the technology is better, so we can.
I'll put this up here. This picture right here. This is AI, absolutely AI, and I have a full body photo of this. I just zoomed in on the head. All right, so everybody looks at that. Very realistic. I created that picture based on people's accounts. I went through interviews. I went online. I went to the Bigfoot Mapping Project. I went to BFRO, and I read reports, and I started accumulating the information of what was the common denominators in all these people's stories. Now, granted, there's some changes. Some say conical, some say don't, some say blue eyes, some say don't, some say it was a white Bigfoot, some say don't. But I took what was the majority of the sightings, okay? And I took all this information, I put it in an AI program, and then I told AI, with the information that I just gave you, can you create an image of what they're describing? And that's what it came up with. See what I'm saying? So that's based on other people,
Yeah,
not me, not me. I took their information. Um, what are they seeing? See what I'm saying? It's very very interesting. It's very interesting. You know,
I agree. People are seeing something, and it's been going on for hundreds of years, and there's oral history behind it. There's written history. You know, could some people mistake what they're seeing? Could people be seeing a bear? Sure, some, but I think there's too many accounts and there's too many things they can't explain to just wash it all away that something's not out there.
correct.
You
And I
know,
think
and
absolutely, you're right on the money because there is enough evidence. What was that one guy who was on that documentary? He's a former FBI agent, and he said there is enough evidence that if we were in a court of law, we could convict Sasquatch. There's enough evidence. See what I'm saying? It's all circumstantial, but
yeah,
it's enough. It's enough to convict him. See what I'm saying? So if that's the case, you're right. They are seeing something, and I think it's significant. I think what they're seeing is significant, and I think time, money, and everything else needs to be spent on this. You know?
so let me ask you this: why do you think we've never found a body in the woods?
Well, and and all researchers get that question from skeptics, from family, from whoever. Um, it's a very easy question to answer. Um, it's the same as why don't we find a bear naturally dead naturally in the woods? You know, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, when we had that discussion, I asked him how many. Once he confirmed he does feel that Bigfoot is in the state of Florida, which Florida ranks third in the nation for sightings. Um, I asked him, well, how many do you think there are? And he has this mathematical equation. He went over it with me how he comes to this conclusion. It has to do with bear populations and so forth. But he said probably between 80 to 100 in the state of Florida, somewhere in that range, 80 to 100. Now we have over 200 of Florida panthers, and I've never seen a Florida panther in the woods. I've seen them in a zoo, but I've never seen one live in the area that I research. They are there. They're there. People have caught them out there on cameras, but I have yet to see one. See what I'm saying? And if a panther dies,
Absolutely.
most animals die. They know they're dying, and they usually like to seclude themselves. They find a place to hide, and they lay down, and they die. They wait to die. Okay, dogs do it, cats do it. They all do it. They find a place, a quiet place.
Gorillas do it.
Yep, and they die. If these things are self-aware and they are in family units, and one of your family units passes away, what what do they do? Do they cover it so as out of respect so they don't have animals scavenging the body, or do they bury it? We don't know. See what I'm saying? But they definitely keep it away from everybody else. It's a private thing, just like we would. It's private, and because death is a very private thing, you know. Um, so, like I said, with bears, we have over 4,000 black bears in the state of Florida, and I see bear all the time. But I've never found one naturally dead. You'll see one hit by a car. We can't count that. You know, we can't count one shot by a hunter or injured by a hunter and it died. No, I'm talking natural causes. It got old or it got in a confrontation with another animal and suffered severe injuries and died. We just don't see it. Two, especially in Florida, our soil is very acidic. It doesn't take long for animals to decompose. Just the environment will eat up the body, but then you've got bugs that are going to eat it, maggots are going to eat it. Then you've got the rodents and other animals that come in and chew on the bones and chew on the marrow and chew on the antlers of deer and stuff because they're looking for calcium. It does not take long for an animal to decompose, and there's no sign of it at all.
Yep.
You know,
About
so
3 weeks.
yeah, it doesn't take long at all, and so it's not like humans. You could bury a human and come back a year later, open up their coffin, and they're still there because we embalm them. We do things to make the body last longer. See what I'm saying? But naturally, no, you're not going to find it. You know what I mean? How often have you heard somebody bought some land in, let's say, Oklahoma, was clearing the land and found cowboy bones? An old Western guy died here and it was buried, and they just, like you see in the movies, they put rocks, that pile of rocks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When have we ever found that? See what I'm saying? And found the bones? We don't, because they are decomposed. They're gone. They're part of the soil. You could dig there and you're not going to find anything. See what I'm saying? So it's one of those things. That's an easy question. I mean, it's just, and again, to find a body, right place at the right time. You happen to break brush in that area. You walked quarter mile into that deep forest, and you happen to come across it. That's the only way. You know what I mean? Because he's not going to be dead on the trail.
Do you think it's possible that they have some kind of ritual to deal with their dead if they are in fact somewhat intelligent?
No, I don't. I think there may be some mourning. We don't know. Like I said, we can only speculate. Like I said, I think mostly they would probably drag the body off and cover it. You know what I mean? Because especially in Florida, we don't have caves. Where I'm at, there might be some up in North Florida, up in the Panhandle, but where I'm at, we don't have caves. Our water table's too shallow. We're in sandy areas. Even my yard, you see green grass. It's sand underneath it. It's sand. It's not black dirt. It's sand. So we don't have basements here because it caves in so easy. So I don't think they're putting them in caves or anything like that. Or, I think maybe they take them somewhere and maybe mourn or something like that. But I think they cover them up. I think they put a lot of deadfall on them, and like I said, the elements and animals will get to them, and it's over, and you are not going to find it. Like I said, the only opportunity to find a body and have that is going to be some big dummy that goes out there and shoots one. And there's been claims. There's people out there who claim to have shot them. I haven't seen proof of it, but they
Yeah.
claim to.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately, I agree. I think that's going to be the biggest compelling piece of information is going to be a dead body, because ultimately that's going to give us not only a sample of its DNA, but just size, organs, traits. Why do people see glowing eyes? Is there a legitimate reason behind it? Well, sure, because there's a membrane, blah, blah, blah. All those questions can be answered.
Yes.
And that, because even if you get a hair sample, there's always going to be naysayers saying, well, it's a hair sample, but is it really conclusive? Could have been contaminated, could have been this, could have been that. Unfortunately, I think that's what it's going to end up being, unless there's a compelling enough video evidence if several people catch
it's
passing through,
right,
that maybe you have a shot. But it does seem like since the Patterson Gimlet film, either way, like you mentioned, the Freeman and a few others, but there's not a lot of footage out there. And with everyone walking around with a camera anymore, I guess that's a question I get sometimes, is why isn't there more footage? I have different theories on it. There's evidence that silverback gorillas can sense when there's electronics. I watched a documentary where they had a camera in the tree, and the gorilla stopped and was beating its chest, and it was growling at it. It knew the camera was there. Now, did it know it was electronic, or did it know something didn't belong?
Yeah, it could have smelled
it
could have smelled the plastic, the petroleum. It could have smelled the lithium. or the alkaline. Maybe it heard it click on. You know what I mean? It could be any reason why it looked at it and took offense. You know what I mean? I've
Well,
had
because
trail cams are weird. Trail cams are weird. I use trail cams, and I just bought a very expensive trail cam, solar powered. I can leave it out there forever. Um, I got it was bad weather. I just got off work. I was just going to check my trail cam on the way home, and I got kind of lazy. I didn't want to break brush and get all the way out there and check pull the SD card or whatever. I just wanted to make sure that the camera was okay. It hadn't, because I've had cases where it's been ripped off the tree. So I just want to make sure it's still running, everything's good to go. So I decided to fly my drone. I flew my drone all the way out to my camera and lowered it in front of the camera within my drone hovered within 2 or 3 feet of the camera, dead center in front of it. Okay, and I'm looking at it, moving back and forth. I'm like, yep, camera's good to go. Everything looks good in order. Came back, flew back, got home, went to look at the footage on the drone, or no, when I went to get the SD card a couple days later, when I got home, I'm going through all the footage, and not one photo or video of my drone. Not one. And I flew it right in front of it. I can't explain it. I don't know why, but no drone footage whatsoever. And I know I flew the drone in front of my camera. So it's weird. I don't know.
Well, to me, it's just interesting that animals or primates, particularly, can see that something's out of place, whether they smell it, sense it, feel it,
Absolutely.
look at it. Somehow they know. And the potted gorillas in that particular documentary, the next night was gone,
Yep.
and no one, no one's been able to explain, at least to my satisfaction, how they knew what the actual reason is. But if, for example, a silverback gorilla can tell that something is there. And again, I'm completely operating off the assumption that it's a biological primate of some kind. Could, in fact, a Sasquatch have some ability? Maybe that's why we haven't gotten footage, is because they can tell when there's something around. And I'm not saying it's supernatural. I don't, not saying it is or isn't. I could absolutely be wrong. This is just a hypothesis.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I
I
would
agree.
think that you know, if one primate can do it or has that ability, I don't even want to use the word ability, but has that sense, if you will, that perhaps more do as well. And that might be an explanation of why. But unfortunately, again, that goes right back to, until we get a body, we can really look. We're not going to know for sure.
Well, it's the same with deer. And like I said, I was an avid deer hunter. At nighttime, when you're looking at your trail cam footage from nights, deer's always looking at the camera. Almost foxes and stuff will stop and look right at the camera. You see what I'm saying? The thing is with deer is, and as a deer hunter, you learn behaviors so you can be a better hunter. And the reason why hunters don't move, we just sit up in that tree stand freezing our tail off, but we cannot move, is because when that deer comes in, he's going to look right at you. He knows something is off. Something's not right. This is his backyard. He knows this place, and something isn't right. He senses something odd. That's why he stiffens. He lifts his nose in the air, and he just stares. And you don't move because you're like, man, I don't want him to see me. I just need him to turn broadside so he's not looking at me anymore, because he knows something's wrong. But because you hid your silhouette and you camouflaged really well, you put on something that covered your scent, you have tree line behind you, he can't make it out. You have to hunt a deer, you have to trick him. See what I'm saying? And that's what you're doing. Um, but he knows something's off. And I think that's the same with gorillas. I think when they find something like that, they're like, this isn't right. This doesn't belong here, and I don't like it, so I'm going to get rid of it.
So we talk about the metaphysical side of it. You don't subscribe to that at all.
No. That's the short answer. And the reason why is, like I said, you can't solve an unknown with an unknown. A prime example, it's just portals, for example. Let's just look at portals. Okay. First of all, Physics, as far as portals go, string theory and stuff, and it's all theoretical physics. Okay, it's never been proven. Even physicists will tell you the math says portals are possible, but they don't know if it's probable. You know what I mean? Or they just don't. They've never seen it. It's never been created. They've never been able to. You have CERN. We've all heard about CERN. All the craziness at CERN. Okay. Um, Look at the amount of power and energy that it takes to create that split microsecond of a black hole. Because CERN has created small, tiny, microscopic black holes, but they last a millisecond due to our gravitational pull and other things that are involved. It doesn't last, but it took a huge amount of energy. Um, what's that physicist Tyson? You know, he had made that comment one time. He wasn't talking about Bigfoot. He was talking about portals and stuff like that. And I stopped to listen because I'm like, this is interesting because I hear about portals all the time. And he said the same thing, that we don't even have enough nuclear power plants to create the amount of energy it would take to create a portal for a split second. And even if it created the portal, it wouldn't stabilize long enough for anything to get through it. And if you go through it and it collapses, you're dead. Two, on the opposite end of whatever created the portal is a massive energy burst. Massive. So he said, when you get to the other end, don't be surprised if there's some devastation on the other end where this blast of energy to create this portal had to expel itself. So if Bigfoot is going into um, portholes, he's way more advanced than we are. But he's using a rock to break open a nut. If he's coming out of portholes, we're not seeing this explosiveness of energy. Now, I get the argument. They say, well, they don't use energy, they use frequency. Okay? Well, that's not how physics work. That's not how portals work. They're not created by frequency. They're not created by vibration. They're created by energy. Okay? We're talking massive amounts of atoms and protons being plastered into this area. Um, so it's not frequency. And if it was frequency, if I told you there is a frequency that would make this lamp disappear, you just got to find their frequency. It wouldn't take you long to find a frequency. Build a supercomputer, build a piece of mechanism that runs through the entire spectrum of frequency, starting from 0 to 0.1, 0.2, 0. And keep going. It may take a year to run through every possible frequency, but at some point, you will find the frequency that made that lamp disappear. But science hasn't done it yet because it's not frequency, it's energy, pure energy. See what I'm saying? You know, the CERN is taking two atoms and bashing them together at speeds faster than the speed of light. See what I'm saying? And they can't create it with that massive explosion of those atoms hitting each other, creating this massive amount of energy for that moment, that split microsecond, and can't create a portal. See what I'm saying? Now, you got people to say, oh, no,
Yeah.
I watched this thing and CERN does create portals and beasts are coming out of it, monsters and evil spirits and stuff like that. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Our world's covered with conspiracy theories. That's the human bias again stepping in, because when we don't know, we create. You know what I mean? And people bring it up all the time. Well, they're doing this. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. Like you, I reserve the right to be wrong. You know,
Yeah.
but prove it to me, and you've got somebody that'll back you up 100%. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
we have this bias in everything. For a prime example is when physics, when math was really starting to become deep science. Um, back in the original, in the Roman times, where they were starting to create physics and algebras and geometry and stuff like that. When they said, okay, especially when they got into astrology, They were a lot of answers were that we live off today was created back then. Back then, with a simple telescope and math, they were able to figure things out. And they said, okay, because the mathematical equation says this is going to be over here tomorrow. Sure enough, that is over there tomorrow. They had the science down. But you know what their explanation was when it didn't work out? When the math said it should be over there, but they wake up and it's not there. It did something completely different. You know what their explanation was? It was God's will. That's what they wrote back then in their journals.
Yeah.
It was God's intervention, because that was the human bias, because they didn't have an answer. So they created the human bias to answer it. Then we get into these comets that are coming through our solar system. We've got this AI Atlas, whatever, coming in. We had the Oumuamua or whatever that one was. We've had 3 of them so far, interstellar visitors. How long did it take when the thing was not doing what science said it's supposed to do? All of a sudden, it's not coming in the right plane. It's traveling at a speed it's not supposed to be speeding. It's coming from a direction it's not coming from. What was the human bias? It must be alien. It must be a spacecraft. It must be, see what I'm saying? All of a sudden, that human bias comes in. It's the same with Bigfoot. Oh, I saw a Bigfoot and it just disappeared. Well, the human bias comes in and says, must have been a portal. See what I'm saying? We got to step away from that. We have to step away from that. We have to look at this logically and scientifically. And grant me, I tell the audience, listen, audience, I'm 100% believer in Bigfoot. 100% believer. You will never convince me this thing does not exist. This conversation that we're having is trying to open your mind up to look at things logically and scientifically, to look at things in a manner that can be explained. See what I'm saying? Not the metaphysical. So that's where I stand on, when you ask me, where do I stand on metaphysical? It can't be proven. Mindspeak. Mindspeak is a prime example. Mindspeak. Okay? It's easy for me to tell you, hey man, I mind spoke with my dog and he told me his toe hurts. Can you prove that? Can you prove that did not happen? No. If I told you my dog mind spoke to me, you can't prove it didn't happen. See what I'm saying? So you can't prove an unknown with an unknown. And I always bring up the analogy, and I had this argument with Ron Moorhead, or attempted to anyways, because he's big into mind speak now. For the first 50 years, he wasn't. See what I'm saying? There was nothing paranormal about his thing. He recorded the Sierra sounds, and that was it. But now he's into quantum physics and frequencies and mind speak and all this stuff. Very simple questions on mind speak. Very simple questions. And these are scientifically proven. When you go to sleep at night, what language do you dream in?
English, I assume. I don't really remember my dreams that much, but
if you're Japanese, you dream in Japanese. If you're Russian, you dream in Russian. Okay? So for another species that's not even the same species, even if mind speak was probable between 2 humans, I can grasp onto it because it's the same species. And I think there's some way people do, because they had that autism report, if you watch that, where a mother in one room picks up an apple and the autistic child in the other room draws an apple. But that's the same species. Okay? Now you're trying to convince me that another creature that's not human, that's not a modern human, can talk to us and we understand its language, or it understands our language. See what I'm saying? Doesn't make sense. If a Chinese guy could mind speak with me, he would speak to me in Chinese, because that's what he knows. He doesn't know English, and vice versa. I don't know Chinese.
Yeah.
So I would try to mind speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would think it would be more of images if mind speak was as it was. And I'm not saying it's not. I could be wrong. Perhaps they can scan our minds somehow and understand our language, and they're much smarter than we give them credit for. But my guess is if mind speak was to happen, it would be more like images would be shared, not necessarily linguistics, because
Correct.
that's something we
And
can relate to. I can see an apple, I can see a tree. They may have a different name for it, but if they share an image and your mind reacts in a certain way, or your pupils dilate or your eyes open, they're registering that you're seeing it. I could see some kind of communication like that, but I have trouble wrapping my head around when people say it had a conversation with me. It told me not to fear it.
right.
I just don't. We don't even know if they have vocal cords to
Correct.
form the language that we speak. We're not actually, you know what I'm saying? We don't know that they can
Right.
actually form the words, let alone understand them.
Correct.
And
I
I'm not
will
saying that
lean.
they don't have, some sixth sense that they can connect with us on a level we don't understand. I think there's a lot about our species that we've forgotten or things that we've lost. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole for another time. But for purposes of this, I just don't see how in a matter of seconds they can learn a language, they could figure out how to communicate with us.
I'll bring
I
you
just
two
think it would be
scenarios.
more likely. Yeah.
I got two scenarios. One, okay, if we look at the Patterson Gimlin film, now according to M.K. Davis, there was a massacre. Okay, that's been debunked. There was never a massacre. But according to him, when that film was shot, that was the third time actually that she had walked back and forth. That's M.K. Davis's thing. But at what point did she feel threatened? Why didn't she go in a portal, or why didn't she mind speak? See what I'm saying? She didn't. She walked off quickly. She walked off.
Yeah.
You know. Um, so I don't think those things are valuable whatsoever in the research world. I had a guest on just recently. Y'all should check it out. It was a very interesting. He had a really interesting encounter where he was face to face with a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot community communicated with him via sign language. Now I can grasp on that a little bit more. Where it when he walked when this thing came out, it went like this. It put its hands up, like saying, "Okay, look." See what I'm saying? It's just like you're trying to say stop. Okay. It was very simple gestures. It was very simple hand gestures that he was communicating with this guy. So it was hands up. He put his hand out and pointed. He pointed in different directions. It was very limited. Um, very simple, but it was there you are. But it was sign language. I can grasp onto that. If the guy said that's a lot easier, it's the same when we ran into Indians. You know what I mean? That was the first
Yeah.
thing we did with Indians was sign. Hey, look, I need food. That we all know this is food. This is drink. There's simple things that we can do. See what I'm saying? And I think in his encounter, when he was talking about his encounter on our show, it was very simple. Excuse me, but very direct. See what I'm saying? But it was no mind speak. There was none. Why didn't it mind speak? That brings up Ron Moorhead. Let's talk about that for just a moment. I have a lot of questions on the Ron Moorhead footage of his audio, and I've addressed it. I've brought it up on numerous podcasts. I've brought it up on our podcast. I brought it up many times. I've had the opportunity on two occasions to talk to Ron Moorhead about it. Once in person and once on a podcast. Um, but and I won't go into all the details of what my questions are and why I feel that they need to be answered. But on one of the things that was very clear to me when you listen to one, not just Ron Moorhead, but the guy that he had that was analyzing the film, that linguist, the U.S. Navy linguist, um, why didn't they mind speak? Why were they yelling back and forth to each other? they surrounded Ron Moorhead in this camping area, and Ron Moorhead's actually trying to communicate back with them, and he's recording this. Why would they give up their position like that? Why would they give up their need to hide? See what I'm saying? And according to the linguist, they're communicating back and forth. Like he's yelling at the mother, don't go any closer, yelling at the child, an infant, don't go any closer and step back. And so, he goes through this whole thing. Why didn't they just mind speak to each other and say, hey, don't go any further, kneel down, be quiet? See what I'm saying? Doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
yet Ron Moorhead believes in mind speak. Why didn't they mind speak to each other and kept their mouths shut so you couldn't record them? See what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me that if mind speak is real, why didn't they mind speak? You know. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not talking
And
about that everything's got to be mind speak. I believe in howls. I believe in whoops and stuff like that. I think they have a purpose. I think they do it for a reason. It's not for us. I think it's for themselves, for the other, the other ones that might be in the area. I don't think they really care that we're there. I don't think they care. I don't think they want to scream and say, "Here I am." See what I'm saying? It makes no sense. You know,
yeah.
I think they're screaming, "Here I am" to their own species. More of a beacon. Where are you? Hey, I'm over here. Okay, I'm heading that direction. But that's why I don't call. I don't make calls. You know what I mean? That's their language. That's their thing. Let them do it.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Um, well, it looks like we're coming up on about 3.5 hours here, so we should probably wrap this up.
Oh, it's been
Why don't
fantastic.
you tell us a little bit about your podcast and how people can find you?
We try to do a show every other Friday, but or every other Thursday, one of those 2 days. Usually it doesn't work out that way. We end up doing one every week. We do have a guest coming up next week. He's a guy from Australia. So I'm really interested in talking to a guy about the Yowie and what they're experiencing and evidence they're coming up with. So he'll be on Sasquatch Unredacted podcast. You can find that on YouTube. We simulcast it. So we simulcast it on 3 different channels, which is my channel, which is Bigfoot Florida Guy. We also simulcast it on Sasquatch Unredacted and on Johnny's channel, Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. So I recommend everybody go to Sasquatch Unredacted to watch it. It's just the easiest one, but it's on 3 channels. So our subscribers on our other channels, can watch it from there too as well. We also have Facebook pages that all on the same title. So Bigfoot Florida Guy have a Facebook page. Sasquatch Unredacted podcast has a Facebook, and then Johnny has Sasquatch Encounter Brigade Facebook page. So great places. We're very fair. We don't make fun of nobody. We don't attack anybody. We like to talk logical. We love to hear people's stories, no matter how weird it is or how far fetched it is. We're not going to bash you. We're not even going to disagree with you. When we do our podcast, this is your story. This is your time. Okay. Having a podcast like this where me and you are having an open dialogue to talk theory, talk ideas and stuff like that, that's a little bit different. You've corrected me and said, well, this is what I think. I've told you, hey, this is what I think. And you're still my buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how we work. But as far as a podcast goes, we're not going to interrupt you. We're going to let you tell your story. We're going to ask some questions to get more detail. And that's it. It's your story. It's your encounter. You know what I mean? We're giving you the avenue and the opportunity to tell people because it may help people. It may help people understand. We're interested in you as a person and what you experienced. So it's a very safe place to come and tell your stories if you have a Bigfoot sighting. Now, we do try to stay away from UFOs and other cryptids and stuff like that. We are strictly a Bigfoot channel. So, but if you want to hit us up, you can go to Sasquatch Unredacted at gmail.com and we can, yep, there it is. Sasquatch Unredacted at gmail.com. Send us an email. If you want to be on the show, say, hey, my name is John Jones and this is my encounter, and we'll get back with you. I check that email daily. And I will message you or Johnny will message you and we'll work it out. We'll get you on the show and have you have an opportunity to get it out and tell people what you saw and what you witnessed. especially other states. I love hearing from other states. I get a lot of Florida because this is where I am, and I know a lot of people here. But I would love to hear some stuff in the Pacific Northwest. I would love to hear some stuff from Canada. I really love to hear from a Native American. You know what I mean? So those opportunities are out there. So if you're watching and you meet one of those criteria, I'd definitely love to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going
Oh,
to go
real quick, another
Please
note.
stay out backstage. Yeah.
I forgot about this. I don't know when what people are doing or where they're at, but if you're in Ohio on October 2nd through the 5th,
Yes.
I will be flying up to Ohio to be at Salt Fork. What is that? Salt Fork National Park as a guest speaker. Salt Fork State Park. I will be a guest speaker at a Bigfoot camp out. There's approximately, so far, there's about 30 or 40 people. You don't have to camp out, but if you want to come out for the day, I will be speaking on Friday night. I believe it's Friday night. But if y'all want to come out, I think it's a nominal small fee to get in, and you can come listen to the speakers. There's three of us speaking. It's myself, Icebox from Dirt Road Bigfoot, and Brian Barber. So I think Brian Barber's first, then Icebox, and then I top everything off at the end and talk about Bigfoot in Florida. So if y'all want to come to that, go to Dirt Road Bigfoot. I think he has a Facebook page, but he definitely has a YouTube channel. And message him and say, hey, I want to go to that. But if you're just there for the day, I think it's $10 a day to camp there. That's pretty cheap. But if you just want to go up there to hear the speakers, I think if you donate $5 or whatever it is to listen and stuff like that, I think they'd be happy. So that's where I'll be if anybody wants to meet me in person and tell me what a dummy I am.
And for our Ohio listeners, Salt Fork State Park is Hocking Hills area. Pretty much everyone in Ohio, Hocking Hills is kind of a staple. It's our big landmark, so everyone knows where Hocking Hills is. Salt Fork, okay. Not everyone knows about it. If you're not big in the cryptid community, but about 2 hours from Cleveland, an hour and a half from Columbus. So it's a pretty good location, pretty accessible. So hopefully everyone who has an opportunity will check you guys out.
Well, I definitely jumped on the offer when they offered to have me fly up and be a guest speaker because I know it's a hot spot in the state of Florida. In the state of Ohio. And I can cross it off my bucket list that I got an opportunity to go up there, spend a few days, do some research, do some hiking, check the area out, hopefully have some evidence or an encounter or something. So looking forward to it. That is October. It's the first weekend of October is where I'll be up there. I think I'll fly up on Thursday and leave on Sunday.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Hang out backstage if you would for a couple of minutes, and I'll be right there.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for letting me be your first show. Hopefully it's not boring. I hope everybody enjoys it. And I just want to tell everybody, God bless. Live a happy life. Don't let negativity into it. And get out in the woods, enjoy yourselves, and go squatching. Have fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. This will probably end up being a 2-part episode, but we appreciate everyone. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on cryptidparanormal.com.